It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Do not be scared of the internet. Mike Masnick is here from Tech Dirt. Georgia Dow, the internet's favorite psychologist, and Yanko Reckers from The Information. We'll talk about Barbie. She just joined the $1 billion club. Amazon's focusing on AI, and why you can't buy an incandescent light bulb anymore. Oh. Plus, Elon Musk says he's lifting weights to prepare for his cage match that will never happen with Mark Zuckerberg. All that and more coming up on Twit.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 939, recorded Sunday, August 6th, 2023. The Immortal Cell. This Week in Tech is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. If you're hiring, you know it's hard to attract top talent. Team up with a hiring partner who understands how tough it is and knows what you need. ZipRecruiter. Go to our exclusive web address to try ZipRecruiter for free, ziprecruiter.com/twit. And by ExpressVPN. Be smart. Stop paying full price for streaming services and only getting access to a fraction of their content. Get your money's worth. Gets 3 extra months free with a 1-year package at expressvpn.com/twit. And by Lookout. Whether on a device or in the cloud, your business data is always on the move. Minimize risk, increase visibility, and ensure compliance with Lookout's unified platform. Visit lookout.com today. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the latest tech news. And every week I put together a panel of people I love and want to talk to, and we did it again. Thank you, Jason Howell, producer extraordinaire. Georgia Dow is here from Montreal. She's the internet's psychotherapist and my personal shrink. Hi, Georgia.
Hello. It's nice to be here. It's been a little bit.
Great to see you. Georgia
Thank you.
Westmount Therapy, if you're feeling low. If it's an emergency, call whatever your emergency number is in your country. But if you just want somebody to talk to, Georgia's there. And we appreciate that. Thank you, Georgia. Georgia always makes me smile. Also with us, one of my favorite people, and now internet superstar, Mike Masnick. Hi, Mike from Tech Dirt.
Hello.
You may have seen that little article about him in the New York Times. Kashmir Hill's profile headlined, An Internet Veteran's Guide to Not Being Scared of Technology. I feel like Cash probably didn't write that.
I'm guessing not.
Yeah.
I'm guessing
That's a bizarre headline. Mike Masnick, who founded Tech Dirt in 1998. By the way, she dissed you a little bit on the website, I have to say.
Yeah, she did, didn't she?
Writes for an influential audience of lawmakers, CEOs, and activists. Somehow he's still an optimist about the promise of technology. I think that's fair as well.
Sure.
Yeah. And I noticed they didn't really let you out of the office for any of the photos. You're like stuck in the office the whole time, which is hysterical.
It was a difficult photo shoot.
Was it? You don't look super comfortable, I must say.
Yeah, it was. I mean,
you look like you're in better shape than the ficus behind you, though. That is not doing well.
Well, yeah, I don't know why they. I mean, the photographer was there for a few hours, and
these are the ones they used, huh?
I'm a little surprised at the choice of photos. I mean, it is true that there was not much to work with, and we tried to look around to see if there was like somewhere near the office. We took photos outside. I thought there were probably some with the sky in the background that might be nice, but for whatever reason, those are the photos they chose.
You know what? I did learn something from this, besides the fact that your website looks like it's from 1998. I personally think your website is supremely functional, and don't touch it. If it started looking fancy, I wouldn't trust you as much.
Right.
It's exactly what it should look like. But I didn't know that you coined the term Streisand effect.
That's correct.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. See, I'm telling you.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell everyone when they say it? You're going to be like, that was me? That was me, guys. That was me. And no one would believe you. They'd be like, yeah, whatever.
Well, people don't believe me, but
Sure it was.
I invented it, honest. When we have Chris Messina on, he invented the hashtag, right? Gets people in the know, but you can't go around saying, well, yeah, I invented that. So, but I want to tell everybody.
T-shirt.
Yeah, get the T-shirt.
You have to have a T-shirt. That's what you need.
Yeah, then they really wouldn't believe you.
That's true.
When did you coin Streisand effect? I didn't realize that.
It was 2005. So the event where Streisand sued the photographer happened in 2003, and I wrote about it at the time in the whole scenario in which she sued, and then this photo that had a grand total of 8 views before she sued, then immediately shot up to a whole.
It was a picture of her house.
Exactly.
And it's on Wikipedia now.
Yes.
Good job, Barbara.
Yeah.
But I don't blame her, but that's why we need a term for it, the Streisand effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I called it that in 2005, and then it took off. That was not through any work of my own. I have no idea why it caught on. Because it was like a fun thing at the end of an article.
Apt. It was very apt.
And, and now it's taken on a whole life of its own.
Anyway, excellent. And I have to say, well-deserved article about you in the New York Times. I think it was this week.
Thank you.
And in fact, I thought we'll never get Mike on the show now. It's all over. He's a big star now. No, it happens. It happens.
No.
Yeah.
Not in this case.
Also with us, we're really thrilled to have from the Information Fast Company and others, the wonderful Janko Retkers, who has been covering Hollywood and technology and the Nexus for some time. He's good to see you, Janko. Thank you for.
Good to see you too, Leo.
You don't age at all. I don't understand. You just
not quite true.
It's just weird. Anyway, lowpass.cc is his Beehive newsletter. Well worth subscribing. Lots of great stories. In fact, we'll be talking about some of them. But the big story in Hollywood this week is Barbie in $1 billion in revenue in less than a week and a half. Have you seen Barbie yet, Georgia? Why am I asking you? I should ask one of the guys, right? Have you seen?
You should ask one of the guys.
Yeah.
Yes, it's kind of.
There's a little pink in your shot. Have you seen Barbie yet?
Yes, I have seen Barbie.
Then again,
have you seen Barbie yet, Janko?
I have not.
So have you seen it,
maybe
Mike
the question
Masnick?
was.
I have not either. No.
Mike Masnick's the kind of guy who uses soap for shampoo. He's not going to see Barbie. He's not.
All kinds of advertisers. Everything now.
That's mean. I'm so mean. I'm sorry. I had to.
No.
I had to do it.
I to be honest, I haven't gone out to a movie in years. So I haven't gone out to a movie since pre-pandemic. So I have not had a chance to see Barbie yet. Maybe I'll see it at some point.
Today's board op, Jammer B, the guy running the board, rented a movie theater so we could see the newest Doctor Strange movie a year or so ago. That was the only time I've been to the theater since COVID, but I am going to go see Oppenheimer in IMAX on Friday. Finally, it's Friday because there's only a small sweet spot in an IMAX theater, and it was like this hole was eaten out of all the seating charts for weeks ahead. I finally got a seat. It's only 5 rows from the screen, but that's the best I could do.
So where is the best spot in an IMAX?
Kind of a third of the way up and in the center. Sound is really important, so you want to sit in the middle so you get the stereo effect. But then obviously you can't be too close to the screen because you'll be have a crick in your neck at the end of the show. You could sit farther. I think farther, a third or farther back. But I think most people kind of center of center is that's how it gets. If you look at the ticket sales, it blossoms from the middle of the seating chart out. Anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing that. That will be my first real movie with other people. But apparently Barbie's changed the world. Also, the highest gross for any female director, previously held by Patty Jenkins for Wonder Woman, if you're collecting trivia. Wow, $1 billion ticket sales. 400 million domestic. 500 million internationally, faster than any other movie the studio has ever produced, including Harry Potter. Only 53 movies have made over $1 billion, not accounting for inflation. Wonder Woman did $821 million. Frozen did $1.3 billion. Frozen 2, $1.45 billion. I bet you've seen both of those too, Georgia.
I have. Yep.
Yeah. So for those of us who have not yet seen the Barbie movie, and by the way, I want to just, in my defense, say I tried to get Lisa to go see the Barbie movie with me, and she absolutely adamantly refused. So I wasn't going to go by myself. That seemed a little too...
That would have been really cute, though.
Mommy,
you could have worn pink.
There's an old guy all by himself in the theater. They would have thrown me out. Are you kidding?
Yeah. You buy the ticket for the sweet spot in the middle of
In
the
the
movie.
middle. I got the best seat.
In IMAX.
But there has
That's what
been...
you really went to see. It's Friday. You're going to see Barbie in IMAX.
Barbie
now
and
we understand.
IMAX is the real deal.
Now we know. Now we know. You just didn't want to admit it.
Is it a good movie? People say it's a good movie.
So it's an enjoyable movie. I did not find it as deep or in depth. I think that the issues of women and empowerment and equality, I think that have been something that I already discussed and have discussed for a really long time. I think that it made it much more mainstream, but I think that the opposite effect that also has is that other people can be angry. I think that people feel like it was man-hating and that it was actually causing kind of a rift between men and women instead of bringing people together, which I don't think was what the movie intended, and I don't think that that was the message of it.
There were people on the right who said it was anti-man.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't find that it's anti-man, but I can understand where they're coming from with that idea, because it is very, pushing equality and what it looks like to see the lens from an opposite kind of way. Like the Barbie world, like
it's
not a spoiler,
girl's
but
world.
they like see.
Yeah.
It's a girl's world, right? And so they see all these swimsuit models on the screen and they go, oh, look, the Supreme Court. Like it's a completely...
If only.
Different.
If only.
So it's a completely different world. But I think that it also says, and this they did not say, but I kind of thought too, is that if women were in power, that doesn't mean that the world would be a much sweeter, kinder world. Right. That they often, we can do, anyone in power can often want to protect that and often could push other people
I bet
aside,
it makes
which I think was the underlying message also that people
I bet it makes the honchos at HBO a little upset, and Zaslav deserves it, because they took The Idol, which was originally shot by a female director, and they fired her because it was too much from a woman's point of view. This was a show that was on HBO. The Weeknd was kind of the producer of it, and so he had a major role, and it was terrible. It was horrible. They reshot it. It was very sexist and just an awful show with terrible ratings. And I'm thinking they really missed a bet. This proves there's an audience. What's wrong with having a feminine point of view? Nothing. Anyway, the reason it's maybe important is because this is probably one of the last movies. The writers' strike is now kicking in, and in fact, Screen Actors Guilds have followed with a strike. Most Hollywood production is shut down. And in fact, Yanko, didn't the Association of Motion Picture and Television Producers, Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, meet with the Writers Guild on Friday, and nothing?
I'm not completely up to date, but it wouldn't surprise me if those things linger for much longer. And there was this whole theory that somebody brought up that they're just waiting for the writers to basically give up. And
it wasn't a theory. A producer said it out loud. Said this quiet part out loud. We're just going to wait till they lose their houses, and then they'll settle. That's not going to work. I feel like that's a little vicious. Okay. So you're not covering Hollywood as much as you used to write for Variety. So you were.
I used to write for Variety, but I always covered more the tech side of it.
All right. Well, there is a tech side to it, because one of the big issues is AI. There are many other issues. The biggest issue, of course, residuals in a streaming world is not the same as residuals used to be. Movie extras, NPR had a story, are worried about getting scanned and replaced, essentially. NPR quoted a extra who was working on WandaVision, who said after her 4 weeks of working as a background, it's not an extra exactly, it's a background actor. After 4 weeks, she was told by the production crew to report to a tractor trailer where she and other background actors were scanned one by one in front of, she reports, a series of cameras on metal rigs behind glass. Have your hands out, have your hands in, look this way, look that way. Let us see your scared face. Let us see your surprised face. They were scanned for about 15 minutes and digital replicas were created. Hollywood says, we'll never use those on any production that's, they're not already on. But I think that's one of the concerns SAG has about this. And, of course, writers are concerned that AI will be used to create scripts. They won't. I've read some of the AI created scripts. I'm not too worried, but who knows? AI is getting better and better.
It's a scary thing to think that you don't have a right over, you give up your right once and then they could use it and then suddenly you're in a hemorrhoid commercial and you're the butt and you didn't even, get paid for it. And now suddenly, you don't have a right of where you're going to be used nor asked. There has to be, this is kind of that brave new world of what technology can be amazing, but also we have to make sure that we've gone through and made sure, because if not, someone is going to try. And suddenly you're in a movie and you're like, I can't believe, look at me. They're sitting in that seat that I didn't get paid for or choose to be part of that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that I don't understand is that there are laws. I mean, that we do have publicity rights laws. They're state by state, so they're different depending on which state you're in, but most states have some variation on it. And to me, this seems like I have a lot of problems with often how those laws are actually used in practice, but this seems like exactly what those laws are for. And so I'm sort of surprised that there's a lot less talk of it. There's a lot of talk about copyright and AI, which I think is the wrong discussion, but publicity rights laws are like the exact example of this kind of thing. And so I don't understand why people aren't talking about that, because I think that prevents this kind of usage. Of course, the response to that is, scanning people is one thing, but, it's not that long until they can just design fake people to stand in for you in the first place.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
The scanning part is kind of meaningless,
Actually, the scanning part might be part of that, right? Because you still need some training data for all of that to happen. So now they're accumulating these scans with the idea of, we're just going to put you in the background more often in this one production. But I think the danger really there is that once they have enough people scanned, they can just use that to then do meta-humans or whatever, and have AI humans that don't really look at any of those scans anymore. So there's no question of compensation anymore.
Actually, you say meta-human, that's an actual technology Unreal Engine's using to create virtual humans that are indistinguishable from real humans. And you're right, they need training data. And that's maybe how the AMPTP is getting away with this. So, we would never use these scans in another image, another picture, another TV show. But, yeah, it's training data. It won't be you. It'll be you merged with you, and we're going to use that instead. So, Mike, here's my question for you, Mike, because when we worked at Tech TV, we'd have people sign releases before they're on, and invariably the release would say something like, "We have all rights to your image in all forms of media now known or ever to be invented in perpetuity." There's always that little clause that allows you to use it in publicity and other things. I bet you that there's some contractual agreement that allows this. Wouldn't that supersede any laws?
It really depends. Again, all of these things are very context dependent, and the specifics and the facts of each case really, really matter. But the idea that, if they were taking somebody who is real and putting them somewhere that they have never been, and presenting them as if they were in that video, I think that publicity rights
would protect them.
Would protect them.
And certainly that's one of the reasons that unions are striking and actors are striking, is to make sure that that's also in the contracts.
Yeah. I mean, it also does become a contractual issue. And that is where I think the strike part is really important, is that, negotiating this in the first place is really important, which goes back to, that story with the scanning. I understand that people who are, background actors or extras maybe don't have a lot of
they have no clout. They have zero clout
in that situation. but like it still strikes me as, why would you agree to be scanned?
Walk away.
But they may not know when you're signing and you need to eat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like you may not know
Absolutely
everything
true.
that you sign. And I think that they need to go through to make sure, because like, let's just say it, these contracts,
Yes.
no one reads them, like whatever percentage of 1% will read them, but no one reads them. They don't know what's in it. And so I think that this is really important that people, when you're hungry, like, again, $250 could feed someone for like 2 weeks. So it becomes really difficult to be able to know what's there. And I think we need to have contracts be something that is legible, easy to read, not a whole bunch of fine print. And I think that we need to kind of overhaul contract law so that people that don't need to hire a lawyer, because let's be honest, most people can't afford to hire a lawyer, to be able to look over a contract before they're going to be signing to.
And that's a union's job, is to kind of make a boilerplate agreement that everybody is.
Yeah.
And that is where this aspect of the strike is important, where if they can make that clear and understand that, and you don't rely on people who have no power in the position to have to agree to it just to be able to eat. That is where the union is supposed to step in and say, we're going to create a contract that is fair, that prevents this kind of thing, or at least sets it up in a way that the person has either payment or a clear decision of what it is that they're agreeing to, and that it's not in perpetuity for any project ever going into the future.
And the flip side is you could also imagine that there could be a fair contract for it, right? So I think the article mentions it's $187 per day for a background actor to basically sit around all day and then sit in a cafe and pretend to talk for 5 minutes. If now this person was scanned one time and then they use that multiple times or multiple shoots and whatnot, they get compensated every time that gets used in a shoot. That might actually be more money in the end, or maybe it's a lot less work for a comparable amount of money. So one could imagine a scenario that works out well, but obviously the studios would rather probably go a different route.
But again, going back to the point that you made earlier, where if this is just for training data, and then you're just creating models that then you can't associate the particular model with the original actor, so the actor's not going to get paid if it's a fully synthetic model.
Is this legitimate? I mean, we're really seeing creatives, artists, writers. Sarah Silverman is suing because their stuff is being used for AI training. And of course, the product of that training will not be the same. So it's under, I guess, fair use. It's transformational. But creatives are really starting to get more and more concerned about this. And actually, we all should be. I'm sure Yanko, they've taken every article of yours and added that to a model, an LLM, a large language model. That's got to be concerning if you're the person creating the original, that at some point your content's going to be used for training.
Yes and no. I think I'm not too concerned, to be quite honest. At the same way as I'm not concerned that Google is caching my articles or the Internet Archive is archiving my articles. I think there's good points to be made for all of those use cases. And then the flip side is, how do you compensate 4 billion people for all their writing that they ever put online? That may or may not be used in a training model, which may or may not result in any article that may or may not compete with my work in the future. So it's a really muddy thing there. Right?
If I'm Sam Altman of OpenAI, I'm going to argue this stuff's public. It's on the internet. We're just scanning public materials. You put it out there if you don't want it out there. Although I kind of agree with Google's plan to add a robots.txt style metadata to sites saying, please don't add this to an AI training model. I think that would be a good way to handle that.
I think it is a not necessary under the law, but a reasonable move for them to make in order to appease a bunch of people who are very, very angry. So
Sarah Silverman and other comics are suing. Sarah Silverman has a book, Bedwetter, and her attorney's point is, you could go to ChatGPT and say, summarize Sarah Silverman's Bedwetter book, and it gets a full summary. And she's saying, well, how do they know?
But I think that one is a pretty bad lawsuit. I wrote something about it a few weeks ago. I think her lawyers are the same ones. They filed a bunch of the lawsuits. I think there are 7 or 8 copyright.
So it's kind of ambulance
lawsuits.
chasers for LLMs, kind of.
And they filed a few of them, and I don't think it's a strong lawsuit because if you and people get mad at me for this, so I'm like, do I want to start this and have people?
No. But it's important. It's important. I agree with you. In fact, I've dismissed all of the artists' copyright claims. Same thing. Tell us why, though. I feel like it's transformational. It's fair use.
Yeah, it's to me the argument that I keep making is, in her lawsuit, she presents this, ask ChatGPT for a summary of her book, and it gives one. And the summary is not very good. It reads like, a middle school book report.
Right.
And then you begin to think like, is someone doing a middle school book report? Is that infringing? Well, no, that would be ridiculous. And to some extent, and yes, there are differences, and yes, the intent is different, but all that ChatGPT is effectively doing is kind of a middle school book report style thing. And so like ingesting the content, reading the content, learning from it, and then being able to summarize it should not be copyright.
Yeah, if you asked me to summarize Bedwetter, which is, by the way, a great book, you should read it. She's very funny.
Yeah.
I could do that. Is that a violation of the law? Absolutely not.
And we don't even know if ChatGPT actually read her book and summarized it, or if it just read a bunch of summaries of their book, including maybe yours, Leo, and then wrote a summary based on those summaries, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's, this focus, again, it goes back to like the focus on copyright, I think, is the wrong focus. It is where everybody goes. And I think it's sort of a symptom of the last, 50, 100 years where Hollywood in particular has convinced everyone that the only tool possible to protect artists for anything is copyright. And so everyone's jumping on AI and saying, oh, we have to have copyright law protect us. And I think it's the wrong tool, and it leads to really weird lawsuits and really weird claims and really weird outcomes if those lawsuits are taken seriously.
But if all you have is a hammer, that's the tool you use.
But there are other tools.
What would you propose? How? You said digital publicity rights, perhaps, would be another thing.
So right. So there already are publicity rights in many states, not all. And again, there are differences in different states, and there are a lot of specifics in how they work. But in the case where you are legitimately copying someone and presenting them as if they did write something or they are appearing in something that they did not, publicity rights takes care.
You can't have Fred Astaire dancing with a vacuum cleaner unless you pay the estate of Fred Astaire.
That actually gets trickier, because then there are questions of like post-mortem publicity rights, and some states say yes and some states say no. Once the person has died, you can do whatever you want with them. So that one is a little more complicated, and so in some cases you don't. I don't remember the specifics with the Fred Astaire and the vacuum cleaner if they had to pay the estate or not.
There's a very famous Fred Astaire dance with a hat rack that I think they repurposed to be a Dirt Devil vacuum cleaner.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if the Fred Astaire estate got paid for that or not. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. Can you use Albert Einstein's? Anybody can use a picture of Albert Einstein, right? If it's a public domain picture.
If it's a public domain picture, then sure.
If I said Albert Einstein says Twit is the best podcast in the world, is Albert Einstein's estate going to come after me? Probably not.
I think, I mean.
Do you have ideas now?
I'm thinking here. I got ideas.
Right. I mean, there are things like, there's like, historical fiction that takes real people and puts them into fictional arenas. And we think that's okay for the most part. I think it would be a problematic world in which you had to get the estate's okay to put a real live figure into a historical fiction.
But you see how complicated this is.
Yeah.
And I can see an actor going to the Unreal Engine's metahuman technology. And look how Unreal Epic publicizes this. Look how easy high fidelity digital humans made easy, that you can create background actors from software that are good and realistic. Now, obviously, it's trained on something, but do the people whose faces were used in the training, do they have rights to the result? I don't know. I mean, and I could see why. So what I'm thinking is happening is, you're right, Mike, there's probably not a lot of legal recourse for Sarah Silverman or Thomas Kincaid, the painter of light, to get money from OpenAI. But there's definitely this feeling in the world of creatives that, well, they owe us something.
Sure.
Is that unreasonable?
I don't think it's an unreasonable feeling. Or, I mean, anyone's feelings are, I'm not going to...
Feelings don't win in a court of law. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm just not sure that there's a legal scenario that makes sense, that is going to make them happy or make them feel whole.
Yeah.
And
it's something that we're all dealing with now in this world of large language models.
But again, like Yanko was saying, where it's like, I'm not particularly worried. I have 51,000 articles written, and I actually hope that AI reads through all of them, and that I could go into ChatGPT and say, write a Tech Dirt article about X.
Yeah.
And not being Twitter X, but maybe, write an article about this. And, and I know it's not going to be great, but like, would that help me be more productive? I think it might be. And I think that would actually be useful. So I think, not that in every case that like there's an obvious way that it makes people more productive or more useful or whatever. But I think there are a lot of cases where that is going to be true. And I think that the focus for people should be to look for that. And the example I've used, and I think it was even mentioned in that article about the body scanning, was Grimes, the singer who released the AI version of her voice and said, anyone go ahead and make songs with AI Grimes, and you just have to give me 50% cut of any revenue.
Very important. You have to give me 50%.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's a contractual setup that says, I am going to, instead of like trying to shut this down and block it, I'm going to encourage it, but structured in a way that I benefit from. And so I think that the more that people start looking at this technology is in, how can I make it, a useful thing, rather than saying like, this has to be stopped entirely. I think the sort of more forward-looking approach, rather than like, I need to get paid for what happened before, it's just going to be a more overall beneficial setup.
And there's probably models to make that work for smaller creators too, when it comes to sort of collective licensing models, the type of things that have worked in the music industry for decades, essentially, right? So the unions have a big influence, obviously, in Hollywood. If they were to structure a contract and say, you can only make films with union actors if you pay, 3% into this big pool, and we're going to dole it out to all our members as a flat fee at the end of the year for their use in AI works, because it's going to happen regardless. It's a lot harder to track those types of things, but I think there's probably models to make it also work financially.
Yeah, and that's interesting, but that also gets tricky, right? Because then you could say like, okay, I mean, that sounds great. Have this 3% fund that then gets distributed to all the background actors or whatever who were used to train the models. But then you get to this world in which every background actor and every show or movie is from that, and you block out the ability for new actors to get into that pool, right? And then suddenly you have this like, people who are 85, 90 years old getting paid for being, the model on which a 27-year-old was based on or whatever. And so, I'm not against that kind of model where there's some sort of like, collective licensing or however you want to structure it, but that it does raise a bunch of questions about how that actually plays out in practice, and then what that means for the overall market as well.
Maybe this really is
in the end,
the future,
in the end, as more people, are being like, as computers and technology is taking over certain jobs for people aren't going to be in those places. So the thoughts of, universal income, or what do we do in order to give people different types of jobs while, computers and, other things are taking over for those places, definitely becomes something that we need to discuss.
I feel like there's a certain amount of whistling past the graveyard, though, with you and Mike and Yanko and me, because I have more than 20,000 hours of content on the internet publicly available, and you too, Georgia, you're putting all those videos up. that we say, well, no one can duplicate what we do. What we do is so special. As humans, we're so good that, go ahead, let them have it. That may be a little short-term okay, but long-term, that may be problematic. We may regret that, because you're right. Right now, it's a middle schooler's report on Sarah Silverman. But in some amount of time, 5, 10, 15 years, it might be better than Sarah Silverman.
Well, let's say it. It's probably going to be much faster than 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Right? Like in 1 year, we can already see that
it's happening
these articles
fast.
are quite good. Like, not always. And if they're bad, they're really, really terrible. But these are things that I think that everyone... We're made to think that for me, it'll be different and that I don't have to worry.
I'm too good to be duplicated.
We feel much more comfortable. That's our safe zone. So as humans, we like to stay in that feeling of everything's safe. And then we have other personality types that are the opposite. That are like, the world is crumbling and
people like me.
We have to wear the tinfoil hat. And so because of those two extremes, which probably neither of them are accurate, we end up not really taking care of things because people are like, someone that says that, we have to make sure that we've actually made sure that contracts cover people for, maybe you not just that you use the license and you get paid, but do you have a say in which way is your likeness going to be used and how?
Yeah.
Like that's an area of contract law that is relatively weak because it's like we can just use it for everything and anything now and forever. Don't ask us. And we can change the contract at any time. We'll kind of let you know. But it's considered that you've already accepted that. Like there's certain areas where it's like, that seems much more sketchy. So I think that we need to kind of be in that middle ground where, trust in the world, but make sure that you take care of your stuff as well.
That's a psychologist's point of view, is the two extremes. And no, I think that's important. That's an important insight.
The one thing I would add though is like, I don't think that, like right now, yes, the AI is not as good. I'm sure that the AI is going to catch up. But I actually would like that, right? I mean,
yeah,
I feel
again,
like
whistling past the graveyard, Mike.
I don't know. I feel like I write about 10 to 15% of what I would actually like to write, and I would love to be able to point
a little
Mike
plastic
Masnick
pal.
AI, and point it at. This story is happening. I want to write a Mike Masnick take on it. I think that would be really handy for me.
But what do you feel about someone else saying, I want to write a Mike Masnick thing, and I'm going to say this is in the likeness of, and I'm going to be paid by the people that usually pay you. Like it can go a little bit further till you might not be as comfortable with them. Like I would mind someone getting therapy from an AI. But then if they're doing like therapy, like Georgia Dow does therapy, and now
I want a therapist in the style of Georgia Dow. I think that's a good.
And then it's my face, slightly altered, that's giving that. Like, there's a point where the comfort becomes not so sure I'm as comfortable at this state of where it could go to.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I might be wired weird in that, like, I wouldn't mind if somebody was creating, Mike Masnick style things, especially because if they're not doing a good job, then I can call that out. But just the fact that, like, if somebody thinks that my takes have enough value that they would create them, like,
there's a certain amount of an ego gratification.
But you wouldn't be happy if somebody created a website called, I don't know, techsoil.com and Mike Masnick writes a whole bunch of pieces that look exactly like something you would write with your point of view and your ideas.
I don't know. I might not mind that. Like that's kind of fascinating to me.
You no longer
right?
got paid.
Spoken as a technology fatalist, but I'm a kind of
I don't get paid now.
Yeah, no, you're right. But it's the same thing. That's a really good point you raised, Georgia. Because like I said, there's 20,000 hours or more of my audio and video. It'd be trivial to synthesize me. And I'm sure at some point AI get good enough to synthesize me so it's indistinguishable from the original. If I use that, that's fine. If I can retire and all these shows are done by an AI, that's fine. But if somebody created a Twit clone and did all of that and started eating our audience up, I would not be happy about that.
Here's the question. Do you really think that the people who support you and follow the shows because of your involvement are going to be so quick to jump to an AI generated version of you?
Not so quick.
The core fan base, no. The real issue is confusion. And we are going to face this as we approach the election in the U.S. in 2024, that there will be plenty of people who cannot distinguish between the real deal and a generated deal. And then you have all sorts of problems with misrepresentation, disinformation. I think that is something to legitimately be concerned about.
But those are different questions, right? That's not a question about the economic value.
That's not about copyright.
Right?
No, it's about disinformation. I've just received the figures from 27,447 episodes of Twit with me on them. And since each episode's at least 3 or 4 hours long, we're getting close to 100,000 hours of content out there.
You might be the ultimate model for AI.
But I'm like you, Mike.
You might be the king.
I would just retire and be like, hey, cool. That's eternity, man. You know, Albert Einstein, forget it. I'll
it's also different. So because you own Twit, right? Or you are.
Yeah, I have a trademark.
You found a Twit.
Yeah.
So imagine you work, or like think back. I don't know how long that has been for you. But
almost 20 years.
To work for other radio stations, and they were like, "No, we're not going to hire you anymore.
Right.
We'll hire Leo,
AI Leo.
No, he's much cheaper.
Or even like, what if Leo, you're able to replace, Ant and Jeff and everyone else with AI versions of them. That kind of sucks
now
for
we're
them,
talking.
right?
I never thought of that. Excellent. By the way, Mike.
Or what if they use your likeness to do something inappropriate or, misogynistic or racist?
Yes.
And now
that's the disinformation side of that. That's right.
Or
put
something
words
that you
in
don't
my mouth.
believe in.
That's right.
Yes, exactly.
And people don't distinguish
it can become really creepy.
Yeah. I can guarantee you before 2024, there will be fakes of Joe Biden saying horrific things. I drink the blood of children and enjoy it. And that will be so well done that there will be people fooled by it. Mostly people who want to be fooled by it. By the way, bad news, Mike.
Good point.
Techsoil.com is already taken, but I think techmulch.com is available. So
Excellent.
Hurry.
I am just wondering what people are going to do now with the clip where you're saying, I drink the blood of children.
Yeah, just think of what you can do with that. We've been playing this week. There's a hysterical, tying into Barbie, a hysterical Johnny Cash deep fake of him singing the Barbie song. And I think I would be fooled by it if I didn't know that Johnny Cash. Here, I'll play a little bit of it. I think I won't get into too much trouble. This is so. Don't show the screen. Just.
I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Life in plastic, it's fantastic. You can brush my hair.
Doesn't that? I mean, that would fool me. I know better because I know he died before that was a song. But that would fool me.
The thing is, like, we've been hearing for like 5 or 6 years now about how this exact scenario was going to happen, where there were going to be deep fakes, especially in the political realm, and they were going to fool people.
They've been bad so far, right?
I can't think of a single example. The only thing that I've seen has been sort of in reverse, where somebody has been caught doing something bad and then trying to claim that it was a deep fake to try and get out of responsibility for it. And so, yes, like there is still the possibility that we're going to see a deep fake that, is somehow realistic enough that it fools people. But the one thing that gives me at least some calm is that we haven't seen one yet that's been all that successful.
We will see. We will see one in this election cycle.
I might be more naive, but when I saw the Pope, and this seems more ridiculous, but like pull
in the puffy jacket
and do the not even the puffy jacket, but he was like did a magic trick, like he took the sheet and just pulled it and everything stayed in place. Like
you believe that?
What is he doing?
Wait a minute. Yeah, wait a minute. Let's see that. Let's see that. This is from Ellen DeGeneres, so I'll skip. And we're going to get taken down, of course. But
she'll come after you. She'll definitely come after you.
She's going to come after me. She's going to play this clip that you're talking about.
Oh, God.
Here's the Pope. It's in a mass. He's coming up to St. Peter's Basilica. He's coming up to the altar. He's laid some flowers on the altar. And he pulls the tablecloth off. And the Cardinals are amazed. And they're amazed.
It's horrible.
And, what makes it even better is it had a CNN lower third on it. That's pretty good. And it was so good. I'll tell you how good it was. Snopes.com had to debunk it. Did Pope Francis perform the tablecloth trick?
That was for me. It was just for me. But when we talk about people,
that was, by the way, in 2015. So
it was a while.
That was before we had really good technology.
But our brain believes things that we see so much so that if you're in VR and you know that you're in your living room and you're at a 15th floor, many people have a panic attack when they're walking a plank over the 15th floor out of the building because our brain, our occipital area of our lobe is so large that what we see will believe. Like anything you see often enough and it's repeated starts to reform the way that we see things. And
because
if you're very technologically savvy,
millennia of evolution, that was the case.
Yes, we are adapted for that. And that was a good thing then. And then we deal with people that might not be as technologically savvy or that already have that cognitive dissonance that they want to believe something. And when we're talking about our belief system of what we want, so if your alignment is with a political party and that becomes your identity, you want to believe that so much so that you'll actually warp reality around it. And we've probably all been around people on whichever side that warp reality around their party. And even if you get the truth,
you don't even need
it doesn't even matter. So that little tiny possibility is all that they need to kind of latch onto, because if their party is the one that's going to fail, they need to have something to be able to hold on to. And so it gives us that excuse to be able to believe something. And so you actually don't believe something even if there's facts. And the weirdest part is that true facts will actually make you even more aligned with a lie.
I've seen that research.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's why you can't talk somebody out of a belief. The earth isn't flat. Have you ever been in an airplane? You could see the curvature. No. That's what they want you to think. You cannot. It just solidifies it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's your identity, right? And if you don't believe that, because when it's one of those core beliefs, it changes all the rest of the way that you have to think about things. And that, for us, was really adaptively, like, remember, our brain hasn't evolved much in about 50 to 100,000 years. There's not much evolution. So a lot of this is adapted for, like, caveman times. So that made sense because the world didn't really change.
Right.
And having one belief system kept us alive. We were able to adapt, but not very quickly.
Our ego structure is basically a Jenga tower. And if you take one
that's very well said. I'm stealing that, Leo. I'm stealing that. I love it.
This is why we need a psychologist on every single freaking show to explain all this. It's great to have you. Georgia Dow, Westmount Therapy. But most importantly, youtube.com/Georgia Dow, where, this is the best channel ever, where you can see, a therapist reacts to popular culture. You can see the psychological underpinnings of stuff. Red Dead Redemption. You've been spending a lot of time there. Look at this.
It's a good game. It's a good game.
Yeah. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I love how you really kind of mastered your YouTube thumbnail foo. It's very, very, very good. This is so good. youtube.com/Georgia Dow. Also with us, Mike Masnick. I'm sorry, Mike Mastic from techsoil.com. No. Mike Masnick.
I'm suing.
He is an internet veteran. He will help you not be scared, according to Cash Hill. And I love in Cash Hill's byline on this, it says she traveled to Redwood City, California for this article. As if wow, that's Timbuktu. Amazing. It's great. Always great to have you on, Mike. Your insight is always superb. We often find ourselves on all of our shows saying, I wonder what Mike Masnick would say about this. That's why we read Tech Dirt. And Yanko Retkers, he's at The Information, but he's also got a really good newsletter at Beehive. It's called Low Pass. because he filters the future. Get it? Lowpass.cc. Lots actually in this low pass we can talk about. Meta Horizons reboot. This Rokid is making a TV dongle for its AR glasses. Maybe some insight into what will be coming from Apple. Are you sold on the Vision Pro? You think that's going to be the next big thing?
Not the next big thing, but 2 or 3 things down the line, maybe. I mean, I don't think anybody at Apple thinks it's the next big thing. A device that's $3,500 and that they're only going to make 100,000 off, or 200,000, whatever the reports, whichever report you believe. But I mean, things are going in that direction, and those are still just transitional devices that are supposed to get us to true AR glasses.
Yeah.
Basically as light as regular glasses, but give you augmentation of everything around you all the time. And that's really hard to make, and we're not going to have those for a couple more years at least. And so they're making these transitional devices in between.
The history of technology is, though, that just because you were the one that made the first one or the second one doesn't mean you're going to be the one that wins. These devices they're making now, both Meta, HTC, Apple, are so early that it may well not be any of them that end up capitalizing on this. Somebody might come along down the pipe and magically might make the AR spectacles, and suddenly everybody says that's the one. So, but I guess it's fair to say that you need to start to get there.
Right.
Somebody's got to do it.
You need to collect some experience with these devices to what people actually want to do with them, right? I think with VR it was the same thing, where people for the longest time didn't really know how people are going to use it, and now it turns out, well, the Quest is actually kind of popular for gaming.
You say that they've sold $3 billion worth of software.
Yeah.
Wow. That surprises me. All right.
And go
ahead. I'll let you.
No. I was going to say, I think the VR is a perfect use case for them stumbling across stuff that they never expected. I think fitness and VR. Nobody really saw that coming.
Yes,
and it's big. It's actually really big.
Well, I think we all know who is the biggest VR diva in the bunch here, Georgia Dow, who actually has dedicated VR rooms in her house. Right? Am I wrong? Still do?
You're not. Yeah, I still do.
I want to ask you about that, but we'll wait a little bit for that one. I got to take a break. Really love this panel. We've got lots more to talk about. Our show today brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Oh, man, if you're hiring, you know how hard it is to attract top talent. It's very competitive out there. If you're good at anything, you've got multiple offers. That's why you need ZipRecruiter to get ahead of the game. You want a partner who knows how to get people to apply to that job. ZipRecruiter knows how tough it is right now, but they have figured out solutions for the problems you're facing doing your hiring. See for yourself. Right now, you could try ZipRecruiter free at ZipRecruiter.com/twit. How does ZipRecruiter work so well? Oh, and by the way, we know this because we use ZipRecruiter. And I can tell you this is exactly the secret. First of all, you're reaching more of the right people, assuming there are great people out there for your job. And you know how important it is you hire the right person, because the right person can really take your company to the stars. The wrong person can drag them into the mud. Just one person, one bad employee can ruin it for everybody. So you know the good ones out there, but how do you reach that person? Well, the first thing ZipRecruiter does is post your job listing to more than 100 other job sites and social networks. So you're going to cast the broadest net. You're going to let more people know about your job than anywhere. And if you need to hire right now, they have such cool, smart technology. It goes through all the current resumes they have on file, matches them up to your requirements, and then sends you a list. Hey, you know what? These people seem to have what you want. You go through that list and you pick a few, you pick the ones you like, and invite them to apply. And I got to tell you, that invitation puts you ahead of the line. Everybody else who wants that person, you're right up front because you ask them and people are flattered. They go, oh, they want me. You get first dibs on the best people. I also like ZipRecruiter because the pricing is so straightforward. There's no surprise costs. You know what you're going to pay before you post. Team up with a hiring partner who understands what you need. ZipRecruiter. We'll post, it's the worst thing. Somebody gives you notice. Oh, crap, we're going to lose one of our best people. What are we going to do? We know people are going to have to work harder. We got to go through the whole application process. But then Lisa will go and we're having breakfast. She goes, oh no, we got to replace Ashley was most recent one. We got to replace Ashley in continuity. So what we do is she posts it at breakfast, and I swear within a few hours she's starting to say, I hear her across this office. She's going, oh, we got one. Oh my gosh, here's another one. Great one. That's how we found Viva. Team up with a hiring partner who understands how tough it is and knows what you need. And it happens fast. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. For us, it's almost always within the first few hours. Go to our exclusive web address to try ZipRecruiter for free. Try it for yourself. It works for us. It's going to work for you. ZipRecruiter.com/twit. Get the best people fast. ZipRecruiter.com/TWIT. ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire. We thank ZipRecruiter not only for supporting our show with their advertising, but for giving us a way to find great people. We love Viva. All right. Back to Hollywood. More Hollywood stories. We got the YouTube results, quarterly results from Google. YouTube ad spending up big time, which is a surprise. It looks like YouTube is really getting in gear. I can't remember what the increase was, a 4.2% increase year over year. But what's really interesting, it seems to be coming at the expense of the TV advertising market. $70 billion a year at stake in TV advertising. YouTube's increase, overall revenue increase, 4% year over year. By the way, that's the first after 3 straight quarters of decline. Seems to come almost exactly at the cost of TV advertising. As of early May, YouTube, this is from the Information Story, Hollywood's pain is YouTube's advertising gain. Great headline. Thank you to Sahil Patel for this article. YouTube has already booked $7 billion in upfront ad spending deals. More advertisers have warmed up to the content on YouTube thanks to creators like Mr. Beast. And while YouTube creators may not have the budgets of expensive TV shows, Sahil writes, they draw younger viewers that traditional TV cannot. And that's really the key. Are we starting to see a shift, Yanko, from traditional television advertising to YouTube?
I think we're seeing a shift in general from traditional TV advertising
to digital,
to streaming,
to
digital, to streaming, to all the streaming platforms. YouTube is one of the biggest benefactors. I think Nielsen also just put numbers out for, I guess those were June numbers actually, but YouTube and Netflix are both the 2 biggest streaming services, and then others are starting to catch up. Tubi is like 1.4% of all TV viewing now, Roku channel, all these channels, all these digital properties are moving up. And it makes a lot of sense because people are cutting the cord. It's not stopping. Comcast just lost another 500,000 of subscribers to its TV products, and across the board that continues, and it continues to get worse. And there is really not that much reason anymore to watch network television or cable television anymore, because the best stuff is on streaming. A lot of stuff, if you weren't looking for the HBOs or the premium channels, if you just wanted to tune into something, just veg out in front of the TV, there's great free alternatives for that right now on streaming.
Freevee and Pluto TV and
exactly,
Tubi.
all those guys.
Yeah.
So obviously the advertisers are going where the eyeballs are, and YouTube is one of the big benefactors, but I think beneficiaries of that. But I think all the other ones are benefiting from it as well.
Netflix just added an ad-supported tier. When you said Netflix, at first I thought, wait a minute, Netflix doesn't have ads. Oh, yes, it does. The cheapest $7 plan has ads, and apparently it's going quite well.
I think they would say they're still very early and that they're still like starting to build it out and figuring out how much to charge and who to work with. I think initially they were just saying, Microsoft of our cases is going to sell all our ads, and now they're like, well, maybe we want to have some other people there too who can do that maybe even better than Microsoft. That's my interpretation, but I think Netflix is in the ad business now. Hulu has the majority of people on Hulu get it with advertising. They're making more money with the ad-supported tier than with the tier without advertising.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Oh,
and I think Netflix is sort of gearing for the same thing. So that's why they're discontinuing their cheapest free plan or the cheapest ad-free plan now, because they're basically like, we can be even cheaper if we have ads, but we're going to make a lot more money with that.
One thing
everybody's going in that direction.
One thing that's helping, when I've in the past watched Hulu with ads, it's the same ad. I was getting so sick of Captain Obvious from what was it, Travelocity or something. Same ad over and over again, and that was a real turnoff. But I've noticed lately, I've been watching Pluto TV. They have more advertisers. They have more variety. It's a lot more like watching network television than it used to be.
They're getting all smarter. They're doing the frequency capping, so you don't see the same ad over and over and over again. I think for a while it was also not just the question of the technology, but also the inventory, right? There wasn't enough advertisers, and there was a huge demand. Streaming was growing leaps and bounds, and then you just have to show the same ad over and over again.
We're moving to a cord cutting world. I mean, that's pretty clear. If I were the cable companies, if I were Comcast and Cox and Spectrum, I'd be a little nervous. They're all moving to be internet service providers as opposed to content over the top TV providers. Is it inevitable that everything's going to be on the internet and that we'll no longer have an antenna or a cable?
People still use an antenna, surprisingly, and it's a whole nother story, but basically the future of broadcast TV, they're still trying to push the new
ATSC 3.0.
ATSC 3.0, exactly, all of that.
That's ridiculous.
It still sort of exists.
Yeah.
But I think primarily everything is streaming, and that most people are comfortable with it now. Most people either own a smart TV or a streaming device, or in many cases both, right? So it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to pay those $100 or more for your cable TV bundle.
Do you, Georgia, you're in Canada, so I guess it's a little different, but do you watch broadcast television, or is it all streaming? I would guess, you
No, it's mostly streaming.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard when you have so many options out there, and I think that's another issue, is that now there's so many options that people are like cutting down on having every single service. But then there's YouTube and other ways that you can get content for free. So when you're competing against free, it does change the entire way, and it's easy. It's easy to consume, and in the end, when you're tired and you want to veg out, which is what people often do at, like, usually consuming media is that time when you want to veg out, or you're driving your car, you're doing something else and you want to do that with it. The easiest thing is often going to work out. And so the more hoops that you have to kind of jump through, the less chance that barrier to entry is going to be so difficult that there's less chance that people are going to go through with it. And so every time they make another, little inconvenience for us, there's a greater chance that people are going to be like, you know what? I don't want to, unless it's that hit show that you really want, and no matter what, and then you'll jump through every single hoop that you need to get it.
I just figured out how long the ad breaks are in Jeopardy, and I know exactly how far to skip. The first one's 4 minutes. You don't believe me, but I know. The first one's 4 minutes. The second one, the second one is 2.5 minutes, and the third one is 3 minutes 45 seconds. So you just skip that amount, and you can. I should say, the second break I include the interviews with the contestants because I don't care about them. I just want to skip right by. I should explain.
Well, there used to be systems that would do that automatically for you, but
remember Replay, and they got put out of business pretty much, right?
Yeah,
with ad skipping. Good, because ads are good. Everybody should listen to all of our ads. No skipping. No, I'm always conflicted because as an ad-supported network, I don't want to, bash ads, but let's face it, nobody really likes ads. But I would also emphasize that if you're not willing to pay for something, you better be willing to watch ads because there's only two choices. Well, I guess the third choice is charity on my part, but we got lights, we got people to pay, we got things to, it's expensive. I'm sure you feel the same way, Mike. I know, you say you're not making any money, but you have to pay the bills. You can't.
Yes.
You have to have advertising, right? There is a Tech premium.
There is we have a variety of different ways that people can support us. So there is a
Patreon, right?
We have Patreon. We have what we call the Tech Dirt Insider setup, which is a premium version. But right now we really don't have ads on the site. And I think we discussed this in the past where we had gone through problems with ad providers.
I remember. Yes. The Google problem. Yeah.
Yes. And so we finally ditched it just because it was becoming too much of a pain for what we were getting out of it. We're not opposed to doing ads, but generally my take on that is that there needs to be a balance in terms of, most publications that I go to today that are ad supported are just, they're impossible to read. I mean, you have like something that comes down off the top, something that pops up across the bottom, and then every 2 paragraphs there's a giant ad, and that they're just ridiculous.
Especially on mobile, there are sites that I cannot read on mobile because of the way the ads will rearrange themselves, so you can't scroll by them.
So I mean, we would never do that even if we did have ads. Right now we don't. But the other thing is I wish that we were talking about better ways to do ads, because I do think that there are ways to do advertisements that are less annoying, less problematic, less based on just trying to suck up all of your data and try and target you the best, but that actually some people enjoy seeing. Like, there are ads that are actually good and enjoyable as content in their own right. And I've written about this for years as well. Like, I wish that the ad market was moving more towards that world in which, they are advertisements and they're clearly labeled as advertisements, but they're not annoying and they're actually good enough that people don't mind seeing them. But the advertising market has not necessarily moved in that realm. Whenever people approach us about advertising deals, we try to talk to them about like, hey, can we talk about doing some sort of creative sponsorship that is something that people would actually enjoy? And so far, we haven't really been able to convince many people to do that, but it is what we would like to do.
I think that's where we're going to end up. I mean, I think advertisers are starting to learn that playing all these games and snarfing up all this data is not actually a long-term tenable point of view. In fact, I think we have a story along those lines here. I can't remember where I stuck it. But basically, ad targeting is just not a long-term good solution to this stuff, and people are really getting fed up with it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens. Yeah, I had it here somewhere. Moving right along, let's talk about Meta and Canada. A divorce in the process, Georgia Dow. Canada has a bill that passed. We call it C-18, the Online News Act. It forces platforms like Google and Meta to negotiate deals with news publishers in Canada to pay for the snippets that in the case of Google, that Google uses in the search results, or the shared articles in the case of Meta that are showing up on Facebook. As a result, Meta is now blocking news in Canada. Rather than pay, they say, nope, we're not going to pay, and no news for you. To which Canadian Heritage Minister Pascal Saint-Onge, who is apparently the one in charge of this, weird, Heritage, okay. She's in charge of the government's negotiations with Meta. She said this week, this is irresponsible. They would rather block their users from accessing good quality and local news instead of paying their fair share to news organizations. We are going to keep standing our ground. If the government can't stand up for Canadians against tech giants, who will? I guess the key here is paying their fair share. Does Meta owe the Toronto Globe and Mail when somebody on Facebook shares an article from the Toronto Globe and Mail?
And sends them traffic?
And sends traffic because it's just a clip, right? It's not the whole article. And you click it, and where do you go? The Toronto Globe and Mail. This happened in Australia. Remember, both Google and Facebook didn't like it, but ended up at the negotiating table after some concessions from the government. It happened in France. It happened in Spain. Google News left Spain for some time. I think it was years before the Spanish news organizations said, complete surrender. Come back, Google. We missed you. What's going to happen to C18? First of all, Georgia, if you're not Michael Geist, are people generally aware of this? I know Michael's been very outspoken against C18.
Yeah, I don't think that many people really know. I think that there's so many options for where you get your information. I don't think that many people will really be that bothered by it. I think that it's a really big issue, and in this, I'm not really much of a Meta or Facebook fan, but in this case, I'm kind of like, well, they have like a point, like where do you overstep your boundaries of trying to enforce your laws and what you're going to do, and you know who gets what and what is fair and how much is an article, and then can we be sued by personal people? Like, it becomes one of those slippery slopes that can kind of go all the way through. So for most people, they don't care. For most people, they're kind of on the side of, not on the side of the government for this.
Oh, interesting. Even though the government's, quote, standing up for Canadians. Meta says only 3% of the content on its users' feeds are news. News is not, according to Meta, a big deal for them. In fact, Rachel Curran, who's their head of public policy in Canada, said news outlets voluntarily share content on Facebook and Instagram to expand their audiences and help their bottom line. They need us more than we need them, she says. In contrast, we know the people using our platforms don't come to us for news. So we're just going to stop showing it.
I thought it was interesting when Threads sort of launched, and all the journalists flocked to Threads because it's much better than whatever's going on at Twitter/X these days. But then Meta came out and said, well, this is not really a platform where we want news to happen, or we're not going to prioritize news at all. And everybody's like, well,
yeah, it's interesting. They mentioned Facebook and Instagram. They didn't mention Threads, did they? Yeah.
Yeah.
But there isn't a lot of news on Threads.
There's some, but I was wondering if that was sort of covered by the claim of Instagram, since Threads is sort of Instagram property. But yeah, it's not clear, and maybe there's just not enough users right now for it to matter.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You're right, though, Janko, that as soon as Threads launched a couple of weeks ago, every brand, every news organization, desperate to get off of Twitter, flocked to Threads. And most of my feed is still it's the brands and the news organizations, less normal people, because most of the normal people stopped posting on Threads. At least half, according to most statistics. I like Threads. Mike, you said you're using Blue Sky mostly these days?
Yeah. I've just found Blue Sky works for my sort of mental model of what I used to use Twitter for, in terms of, if I'm sort of working through ideas or thoughts, or just want to sort of chat with people who are thinking through similar things that I'm thinking through. Blue Sky is obviously a lot smaller, but for whatever reason, it just matches with my mental model of how microblogging kind of site should work.
To me, Threads looked the most like Twitter on launch. Blue Sky felt a little bit more in crowd.
Yeah, I mean, it's been expanding. It's actually been, it's still invite only, and so it's still relatively small, but it's been growing really quickly. I think it's almost up to 500,000 people at this point. And as it grows, more and more of the people that I, enjoy talking to seem to be showing up. And so far there haven't been too many. I wouldn't say, it's certainly not entirely true that the people who make me frustrated about social media, there have been fewer of those on Blue Sky so far.
Yeah. How about Mastodon? Both of you and me also, we have our Mastodon handles in our lower thirds. Is Mastodon just going to be an also ran forever in this? Or
well, I think the big question is whether or not Threads really does embrace ActivityPub, which is what Mastodon is based on,
right?
Which they claim and they continue to swear is absolutely part of the plan. And so if Threads becomes the largest by far, contributor to ActivityPub discussions, then Mastodon might become more interesting, because if you can communicate with people on Threads via any of the various Mastodon tools, that becomes a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
And so I'm sort of curious to see how that plays out in terms of what that will mean for Mastodon.
What are we going to do with all our accounts then? Are we going to merge them again?
So I run a Mastodon instance, twit.social, and I actually think Threads might be a really great opportunity for Mastodon to incorporate some of those brands and news sites, because you can follow them and just stay on Mastodon. And if you want a little touch of that, you can add it. But it doesn't mean you have to participate in Threads, and more importantly, it doesn't mean you have to give any data to Facebook at all. It doesn't communicate that over. Blue Sky is also supposed to federate, not with Mastodon, but in general.
Right.
I don't know if that's going to happen.
And that is definitely part of the plan, and that, I want to see what happens there as well. I think that'll, and if you listen to the developers on Blue Sky in terms of how they look at federation and how they're thinking about it as compared to Mastodon, I think they're trying to solve for some of the problems that Mastodon ran into. Whether or not they accomplish that is, a huge open question. But I think they're actually saying a lot of very thoughtful things in terms of how they're looking at federation and how they look at sort of their role as owner of the protocol or controller of the protocol, as well as running one particular node on it. But right now it's all theoretical. And so, who knows what will actually happen.
What is your preferred social platform, or do you even have one? I'm increasingly of the opinion I don't need to tell anybody anything.
I'm kind of on the same stage as that. I'm like, less is more. I don't really I'll do what I have to kind of for work, and so I can't say that I don't have a social presence, but I'm not someone that likes to post my vacation pictures, and where it's like, it's just one of those things where I'm like, I'd rather not kind of engage in that thing, and I
nothing
don't need
good
to have more followers
ever came of tweeting. It was always just a recipe.
I would push back on that.
Nothing good, but I think that for personal people, it can definitely be something that you have to be careful what you put out there, because it's
people
out there.
Say
and it's
things
always
on Twitter
out there.
and it never goes away, and
never goes away.
Nothing good ever came of my Twitter.
It's
you
only
disagree?
so much tweet deleting.
I honestly think that a lot of TechDirt's recognition over the past 10 years is because of Twitter. I think that we got a lot of attention for various stories, mainly because of discussions on Twitter.
Good.
And good. I think that
so it was valuable for your business.
Sure. And I was able to meet people and communicate with people and, and have connections almost entirely, a whole bunch of really what turned out to be really important connections, almost entirely because of Twitter. And so I actually feel like, what has happened to Twitter is really, really, upsetting, just because it was such a useful service for so many things. And I totally understand the reasons why for many, many people who are not in my position, it was a terrible, horrible, awful service and had no benefit whatsoever. But for myself and for a number of other people that I know, Twitter, has helped people get careers and build up, a wide network and friendships. And so, having something that handles that role, I think is useful for a lot of people.
Yeah, I stand corrected. You're right. That was a facetious and foolish comment. However, I learned my lesson.
It is sort of an interesting moment in it right now, and I think many people are in the same boat there as Georgia, maybe, where
where do we go?
We are rethinking a little bit how have we used this in the past and how we're going to use this. I used to be on Twitter, well, not 24/7, but basically my entire working day, just having TweetDeck up and running and looking at it all the time. Which can take, once the election came around and then COVID and so forth, that can also take a mental toll for sure. And so now with all these new networks coming up, but none being quite that big and Twitter just being a shit show, I don't think I will ever go back to like a world where I pay 24/7 attention to these networks. I don't know if I ever want to have anything that replaces TweetDeck, because like paying a little less attention to that and then diving in when it's useful for me, but also taking a break during the workday from it for hours at a time seems to work actually a lot better.
It is a little bit like rubbernecking a car accident when you visit X these days. Like, I can't look away, but for instance, Elon Musk's latest tweet, Zuck versus Musk fight will be live streamed on X. All proceeds will go to charity for veterans. What?
Is that just recent? I thought his mom said he couldn't do it.
No, this is 14 hours ago. But I don't know if Zuck is behind this.
Does he know that Zuckerberg actually has been like doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu and is
Zuck's would kick his butt.
Well,
yeah,
he's been doing
ripped.
quite well. Like, he's actually training.
Yeah,
quite like whatever
Elon
you think
says,
about Facebook. He's been training hardcore and is with like some of the best and is doing very well. Like, you just won a competition.
Potato. We've seen pictures of Elon with his shirt off. He's a potato. I'm not a potato. I'm one of them, but he's of my tribe. Let's put it that way. Elon did tweet, X'd an hour before that, am lifting weights throughout the day, preparing for the fight. Don't have time to work out, so I just bring them to work.
That's not going to help you. You can't work out from a guillotine.
Wow. Elon also, and this is perhaps more serious, tweeted 19 hours ago, if you are unfairly treated by your employer due to posting or liking something on this platform, notice he doesn't say Twitter or X because he doesn't know what the name is either, on this platform, we will fund your legal bill, no limit. Yeah. Please let us know.
Could that be binding?
No.
Could that be? No. Okay.
Not only is it not binding, it's guaranteed not to happen.
Yeah, it's almost entirely guaranteed not to happen. And they're actually on Blue Sky. There was actually an interesting legal analysis of whether or not that was binding by Ken White, who's a lawyer, who sort of walked through the different reasons. I'm sure that somebody will probably take him to court at some point.
Would it be fitting if it's a former Twitter employee? That would be perfect. In fact, I think he will be in court with quite a few former. There are
quite a few of those.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's so broad and it's so unclear, and the chances of it actually being found binding by a court are pretty low. Mm-hmm. But what a dumb thing to tweet. I mean, it's just.
I mean, he's probably going to do it for 2 or 3 people. He's going to do it for 2 or 3 people who sued really dumb things, and that's going to be the exact ones he picks.
There'll be a few situations in which, the other thing too is like, there are questions of, if people are sued, maybe, but then there are questions of like, because he sort of suggested like if you get fired or something, and if that's the case, like the person who's fired is probably not going to have a legal claim unless they work for the government and there's potential First Amendment issues, but like, if you just work for a company and you say something really dumb on Twitter, which is what he seems to be encouraging, and you get fired, you have no legal recourse. And he's sort of suggesting to people that they will. So I think what might happen is a bunch of people who do get fired for being complete jerks on Twitter then file bogus legal claims and then go ask Elon to pay the legal bills. And, if they're dumb enough and have supported Musk enough, maybe he'll just pay their legal bills. But the most likely scenario is that he's not going to do anything.
Well, if you read the replies to this tweet, it is a litany of horrible people who deserve to be fired, asking Elon to defend their case against their former employer. Doctors saying don't get vaccinated. It's actually a fascinating thread full of. And by the way, Elon, it's very clear at this point. I'm not wrong when I say this, right? That Elon just posts stuff because he knows it'll get in the newspapers and he'll get attention. And he's not attached to what he's saying. It's just
that's why he bought a company.
Yeah, that's really what's going on. It's just he doesn't.
I mean, I think he believes it in the moment that he
moment. Just like he believed he was going to buy Twitter in the moment, and then somebody held his feet to the fire, and now he's screwed. But yeah, it's at that moment he's got the attention span of a firefly. It is not long.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I agree with you. In the moment, he firmly believes that. Okay, let's see. Here we are. Let me do a little break, and then there's still so much news, and I want to get through as much of this as I can. We have a great panel. Techter's superstar, Mike Masnick, is here. I hope you're not scared of the internet. Because if you are, he will make you feel better. Poor Mike. You're going to be living this down.
Isn't that Georgia's job?
Georgia's doing that. Yeah. Actually, that's good. Georgia, if you're scared of the internet, Georgia Dow is here. YouTube.com/Georgia Dow. It'll make you feel good about YouTube, that's for sure. I love her YouTube videos. And Yanko Recker's here from The Information and other points, including Fast Company.
Just freelancing for you, yeah.
Everywhere. But do follow him on his newsletter, lowpass.cc. Our show today brought to you by ExpressVPN. The only VPN I use and recommend. Watching Netflix without using ExpressVPN is like, I like how they make this topical, buying tickets to a Taylor Swift concert, but only being allowed to see the opening act. Huh? The reason is you have, for instance, Netflix. You have a subscription to Netflix. And you may have noticed that Netflix in Canada has a whole different slate of shows, or Netflix in England or Japan. Netflix is all over the world. I asked Netflix about this. They said, well, you have a Netflix account. Yeah, you can watch those, but we don't recommend a VPN because it's not going to be a good experience. It's so slow. But with ExpressVPN, it is fast. They invest in their network so you can watch HD video with no hiccups, no buffering, which means you fire up ExpressVPN on your device. You can use it on your router. A lot of people do. In fact, ExpressVPN sells very good routers with ExpressVPN built in. But you can also use it on Mac, Windows, Linux, iOS, Android. You fire it up and you say, what country would I like to be in today? Let's say you want to be in Japan. You want to watch a lot of anime on Netflix Japan. You choose Japan. You are now emerging on the public internet in Japan. And Netflix Japan says, hey, welcome. Here's all your anime. It's really awesome. How does it work? It lets you change your online location. So you control where Netflix, and it works with other streaming websites as well, think you're located. Very simple. Now, let me tell you the other reasons you want to use ExpressVPN. They're really the important ones. Of course, we talk about a VPN for security, for privacy, for eliminating geographic restrictions. The key, though, is the VPN has to be completely private. And ExpressVPN is zero logging. It's in their privacy policy. Their privacy policy is vetted by independent third parties. So it's true. They even go the extra mile. They created their own trusted server technology. When you fire up ExpressVPN, it launches the trusted server in RAM, sandboxed. It cannot write to the hard drive. As soon as you log off, it's gone, and so is every trace of your visit. And as if that weren't enough, ExpressVPN runs on custom Debian distributions that wipe the drive every morning at reboot. So there is no trace of your visit to ExpressVPN. That is true privacy. They invest in their network so you can stream in high def. It works with everything you've got. They've got servers all over the world, 94 countries. It works with every streaming service, YouTube, iPlayer, Netflix, partly because they invest in rotating their IP addresses, too. So when you use ExpressVPN, you emerge on the public internet with an IP address that's not yours, that's theirs, and they rotate them so these companies don't even really know that you're on a VPN. You just look like somebody who lives in Japan. It's really a good service. I think it's the right way to go. When you need a VPN, there should really be only one company you think of, ExpressVPN. Get your money's worth right now, expressvpn.com/twit. Be smart. Stop paying full price for streaming services and only getting an access to a fraction of their content, the opening acts. Get the whole concert. And don't forget to use our link at expressvpn.com/twit. That way you'll get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN when you sign up for a year. It's the best deal, less than $7 a month. expressvpn.com/twit. If you want me to spell ExpressVPN, I will. expressvpn.com/twit. Have you seen Taylor Swift yet, Georgia? You going to Taylor Swift?
No.
The Eras tour?
No.
No?
No, I'm not much into concerts.
I'm not a Swiftie. But I know a lot of people who are going crazy. Taylor Swift's Eras Tour was in Silicon Valley this week. Somebody said, I don't know if this is true, that the local was it the Cupertino police, instead of having a siren, were playing Taylor Swift songs through their loudspeaker. I don't think I saw it in the news, though. But I don't think it doesn't sound right. Right? Zuck went. He was seen in a box at Levi Stadium. A lot of tech celebrities got tickets to see Tay-Tay. Not me. Guess there's nothing more to... I don't know. I'm being sexist. I asked you about Barbie and now Taylor Swift. Yanko, did you go see Taylor Swift when she was in town?
I did not. I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Mike, you were just down the road. You were just down the road. Did you go down?
I also am certainly not a big sort of concert person. Stadium stuff, not my scene.
Yeah. Let me see if I can look this police siren thing up. It just doesn't seem...
While you're looking it up, I would suggest also looking up what Zuck's response to Elon's statements were on Threads.
About the fight?
Yes.
Well, before that, here is the Santa Clara Police from X.com. For those of you who actually believed we'll be swapping out sirens for Taylor Swift songs, we are not.
So you got fooled.
I got fooled by fake news. Also, no one's wearing a Swiftie Clara patch on their they actually had the...
And I wonder if she would sue them for it. Just wondering.
Yeah, I think she'd be thrilled.
Maybe.
I think she'd be thrilled.
You think she'd be thrilled?
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so I got fooled. See, even
You see, it's not so bad about the Pope now, is it?
Even Albert Einstein believed it. So there you go. So what is he saying about, what is Zuck saying about Elon on Threads?
If you go to his thing on Threads, he had two responses. So to the thing about it being streamed on X, he said, shouldn't we use a more reliable platform?
Oh no, the shade. Shade, I love it.
And for the one about him lifting weights through the day, he said, I'm ready today. I suggested August 26th when he first challenged, but he hasn't confirmed and not holding my breath.
Oh.
Yeah. No, Elon has no intention. This is all part of his general plan to get everybody to pay attention. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm ready today. Oh, there it is. Yeah, so he's responding, though. So, see, Elon's getting the attention. Zuck's paying attention.
Which is what he wants.
Yeah. He says, I love this sport and will continue competing with people who train, no matter what happens here. I love this. I love it. It is really the ultimate shade when Elon spends $44 billion to buy Twitter, to then just spin up something that's an exact duplicate and say, come over here. I mean, that's the cage match right there in a nutshell. Let's see. Amazon had a good quarter. And according to The Verge, every single Amazon team member is working on generative AI. Actually, it's not according to The Verge. It's according to Andy Jassy in the Thursday earnings call. Amazon and AI sitting in a tree.
I really wonder how that's going to play out on your Kindle.
Oh,
you get
God.
all those AI books. So I don't know if he really meant every single team. Well, also, there's the Whole Foods Deli team, and
yeah, I mean, obviously there's some teams that are not. AI is actually very useful, I'm sure, in business intelligence, in doing things like saying how many widgets you sold and how many widgets you need to make for next year, things like that. But honestly, the Amazon Echo could very much use an assist from something intelligent. So could Siri. So could use the Google Assistant. I'm surprised that we haven't seen more AI in those guys. Maybe it'd be too chatty.
I think there's also, with all these voice assistants, once they get things wrong, it can be really, really frustrating. We've all experienced it, I imagine. So when you add all this uncertainty of hallucinating LLMs and so forth, it's going to get really messy really quick. And they don't want people to say, oh, I'm never going to use Alexa again because she just told me complete made-up stuff.
Good point. Too risky. Google is in court, of course, always. The attorneys general of most of the states sued because they said Google was favoring their own services like Google Shopping or YouTube over third-party services. In a ruling unsealed on Friday, U.S. District Judge said, nope, you have not demonstrated to my satisfaction that Google's search results harmed Yelp or Expedia. So we're going to throw that out. He wrote, the state's allegation on vertical search, quote, relies not on evidence, but almost entirely on the opinion and speculation of its expert. Simply put, there is no record evidence of anti-competitive harm. This is from U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta. So the case will go on, but now that whole section has been removed, and it will focus, it's set for trial September 12th, on agreements Google made with companies to make its search engine the default. Google, rumors say, speculation says, pays Apple, for instance, around $15 billion a year to be the default search on Safari. Plaintiffs allege that kept rivals like Bing and DuckDuckGo from succeeding. I'm sure you've written about this, Mike. Is this, you pointed out, Bloomberg said this was a setback for the state's attorney general, but you said, what, AP said it was good news for them?
I don't know if I said that.
Oh, somebody said that.
That might have been so.
I think that was me.
Was it you?
Yeah.
Okay, Yanko. The Bloomberg had a different slant, in other words.
There's always two sides to a story, I guess.
Yeah. I don't see how you can read this too much differently. This seems like a whole chunk of what they were suing about is gone.
And it's the very thing, Yelp has spent years, probably a decade, pushing this exact theory, and really was, one of the main driving forces behind this lawsuit. And to have that part of it, the part that really is about Yelp, just tossed aside by the judge is kind of embarrassing for Yelp.
Maybe you can fill me in on this, since you really pay attention to this. It seems surprising to me that antitrust regulators, not just in the U.S., but even in the EU, seem to be motivated by complaints from competitors. Sony complaining about Microsoft Activision, or Tile complaining about Apple and their AirTags, or Yelp complaining about Google. Is that how it's supposed to be?
Well, that depends on who you ask, right? So there are different schools of thought when it comes to antitrust. And the big question is, what is it that antitrust is supposed to be protecting? Is it supposed to be protecting the consumer, or is it supposed to be protecting competition? And there are many times where those two things overlap, in which case antitrust then works in a reasonable way. But there are times where that is different. And that's where the complications come in. And so the people pushing these theories are the ones who say it's supposed to protect competition. And therefore, if there is a company that is not doing well, the question is, are they not doing well because they're not good at what they do?
Terrible.
They're not they're not attracting the interest from consumers, or are they not doing well because of an unfair business practice by the large incumbent? And so that becomes a lot harder to parse out. And because it's sort of this fuzzy area, it allows any company that is struggling or flailing to claim that it's for antitrust reasons, as opposed to their own inability to succeed. And, there's a lot of gray area in the middle in terms of, which things are really impacting it. But to some extent, competition means that sometimes companies lose. And that alone shouldn't be an antitrust violation. The real question just gets down to, is the big company doing something that is unfair, that blocks their ability to compete fairly? So,
okay, that makes sense. And if a company complains and can demonstrate that, then they have every right to complain, but they have to demonstrate that. And I mean, you can sort of see it in this ruling, right? The part of the case that moved forward was the one where Google comes in and pays a ridiculous amount of money to have its search be the default. That, But that's not a monopoly. I mean,
sure.
If I had Leo's search engine and had the money to pay Apple $15 billion, I would be the default search. That wouldn't be a monopolistic behavior. That's just spending an outrageous amount of money.
Well, it depends, right? I mean, that's where the analysis, I mean, I still think there's a decent chance that even if this is going to trial, that Google could still win.
Yeah.
It's just a question of, where does it get kicked out?
I mean, you don't blame, you don't say, well, Kellogg's, you shouldn't have paid Safeway to be an end cap at the store. That's really putting your cereal in the front of consumers. That's not antitrust and monopolistic behavior. That's just commercial behavior.
Well, there are some people who disagree with you on that. I mean, there are people who will say that some of that behavior, if the company is large enough and if they're able to block others from doing that, then there might be. But I tend to lean towards what you're saying, which is that, it's a more difficult antitrust case to make than others. I think, there are a bunch of different antitrust lawsuits going on all at once, some of which I think are weaker than others. And I think this one was always kind of on the weaker end of the spectrum. I think there is another one involving Google's ad business that I think has much stronger, much stronger arguments about the things that they did behind the scenes to really hurt competitors that were not just like, we have more money and we're able to pay for the end cap kind of situations.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a strong case. You can't, I don't think it's sufficient to say, oh, this company's just too big, Your Honor.
Yeah. But that's,
and that's kind of what you're saying if Google can afford to pay $15 billion to Apple to be the default search engine. Well, they're just too rich.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue certainly Microsoft has plenty of money to pay as well.
Yeah. If Microsoft were willing to spend $15 billion to be the default search, in fact, there were rumors for a while that Bing was going to do that. I can't remember where, but somewhere, and then they decided not to. In other words, they're making an economic decision. It's not worth it to be the default search engine on.
Though I should note, by the way, this was a story that we had last week, a week and a half ago, where Tector got deleted from Bing, and then because we were deleted from Bing, we got deleted from DuckDuckGo as well.
Yeah. People think there are other search engines. There really is mostly just Google and Bing. People license Bing. There was a good article about Nevo, which was a search engine I loved and used, and why it failed, basically. And I think it was in The Verge, but the premise was, you can create a great search engine. Nevo was doing it. They first licensed Bing, and then they were kind of weaning themselves off of Bing. They used AI. It was started by some Googlers who said, we can do this without ads if we ask people to pay. And I was paying $5 a month. I liked it. There were no ads. The search results were quality. They were getting better all the time. But is it the tyranny of the default or the tyranny of the $15 billion, whatever it is? Nevo had to fold and sell.
A lot of people, I keep hearing people now recommend another one that is in that vein, where it's a paid for search engine called Kagi, Kagi. I hadn't used it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have been, when there was a discussion about us getting deleted from DuckDuckGo, which turned into a fight on Hacker News because the CEO of DuckDuckGo dropped in and people were saying, you keep claiming that you're not just Bing, but
it is.
Tector got deleted from Bing and it disappears from DuckDuckGo. It's sort of proving that's not the case. And so, but you're right. There are others who are trying to build search engines, but the question is, can they attract enough of an audience or a business model to make it work?
Brave has just announced that they're going to no longer use Bing results, that they've been working hard to generate their own spider, and they're going to start just doing Brave's results. A lot of people use Brave because it's Chromium. It's a Chrome compatible browser that's not Chrome. I haven't seen that. I've looked at the results, but I can't. Do you know if Kagi? By the way, Kagi is confusing because it's also a payment service, but it's not related. That's a little confusing. But do you know if they use Bing or if they
claim they don't? They claim that it's an entirely unique index, but I don't know nearly enough about it.
Detector disappear from Kagi is I guess you're now the litmus test. You're the canary in the coal mine.
Well, we after we complained, we did come back to we were back in Bing and we were back in DuckDuckGo, but
Good.
I have no idea if we are in Kagi or not.
Yeah. It just shows how hard it is. In this case, this is really, Google is a very strong incumbent. And it just shows how hard it would be to create a competitor. It's almost virtually impossible.
That gets to the antitrust question.
Exactly.
If it's impossible, then there are questions about, does antitrust need to step in to help enable competition?
Exactly. Yeah.
With the idea that if there is competition, then the consumer would benefit as well. But that's where there are a lot of questions and a lot of very difficult legal questions involved.
God, I mean, it wasn't that long ago. There was a huge diversity of search engines, right?
Yeah.
Start Page and Lycos and Alta Vista and Excite, and these are all names that are dim, dark, distant memories of the internet. Young people are going, who? What? You mean Google? Yeah, Google. That's the one I was talking about.
Remember when Google launched? I mean, this is you and I being old, but when Google launched, I thought it was way too late, right? We have too many search engines already. Why do we need another one?
They won because they were good and simple.
Yes.
But they really did give noticeably better results.
Yes.
The PageRank algorithm worked, and they won because of that. I think it's possible that Lena Khan and the FTC really want Google to break up Google. And just have there be a search engine, and then YouTube is somebody else, and shopping is somebody else, and airfares are somebody else. That would be advertising. Yeah, that would be very interesting, because right now they both buy and sell. They are definitely in that weird position where they control too much of the advertising market, and I think that case has a lot of merit. But I don't know if you can break up Google. Good Lord. Yeah,
I think breaking them up would be very difficult. But
force them to offload the ad business, maybe. Except that's their business. Yeah. It's 80% of their revenue.
Right.
79% as of their last quarterly results. By the way, Apple had kind of weak to middling quarterly results, much as expected, 1% down year over year. But the services were up, and a good part of that is the $15 billion that comes from Google every year. That, and of course, this little thing called the iPhone app market, which makes quite a bit of money for Apple. Let's see. Should we? Let's take a little break, and when we come back, we have a lot of little stories, the little ones that seeped to the bottom. Great panel here: Georgia Dow, Mike Masnick, Janko Redkers. We're going to have more of the show in just a second, but first a word from our sponsor, This Week in Tech, brought to you by Lookout. Business has changed forever. I mean, I think everybody knows that. The boundaries to where we work, even how we work, have melted away. Your data, well, it's always on the move. This is a concern for businesses. It might be on a device in the cloud. It could be across networks. Your data could be down at the local coffee shop. Now, your workforce loves that, but it is a challenge for IT security. That's where Lookout comes in. Lookout helps you control your data and free your workforce. It's a cloud-native security platform. With Lookout, you get complete visibility into all your data. You want to minimize the risk from external and internal threats. Plus, it's great for compliance. You can ensure compliance. And by seamlessly securing hybrid work, your organization does not have to sacrifice productivity for security. Lookout makes IT security a lot simpler. If your IT department is suffering with multiple point solutions and legacy tools, that's just too complex, and it's just a recipe for disaster. Lookout simplifies it all. A single, unified platform that reduces IT complexity and gives you more time to focus on whatever else comes your way. Good data protection. It's not a cage, it's a springboard, letting you and your organization bound toward a future of your making. Visit lookout.com today to learn how to safeguard data, secure hybrid work, and reduce IT complexity. That's lookout.com. Thank you, Lookout, for supporting This Week in Tech. Data protection from endpoint to cloud to your happy place. Have you been following the saga of the superconducting LK99? Anybody interested in that at all? Is it real? Is it fake? I thought the most interesting thing was this is a South Korean researchers who posted a what they call a preprint. That's an unpeer-reviewed scientific article. It will eventually be peer-reviewed and, if approved, get into a scientific journal. But the claiming that they made a superconductor that operates at normal temperatures, which would be massive, would change the way everything works, computing, electric generation, everything. But what's interesting is that they created this out of, kind of normal chemicals that are around the house. And so, and published the details about how they made it, so that you've got a lot of Twitter people and YouTube people saying, oh, yeah, I made it too. Oh, yeah, it wasn't that hard. There is, I think, a reasonable skepticism about this. This is a pretty extraordinary claim. But there are a lot of viral videos, samples of material supposedly levitating because of the Meissner effect. I guess there's nothing much to say except, this is more of the same with social networks. The most scientific experts say extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. That proof is still forthcoming. Nobody has quite replicated it. Even your favorite Instagram influencer. Although it'd be pretty hysterical if they did.
Yeah, that would be. Think of that as a scientific achievement.
I made it too.
So social media influencers are proving these big scientific breakthroughs.
There's a Russian anime fan who has disappeared now after claiming she had also synthesized it. I don't know. It's just, I find it fascinating, frankly, the way people have jumped on this. Angry Russian home scientist claims replication of LK99 with a faster method. Okay, fine. She's disappeared from view. Maybe she didn't really do it. Good news. Voyager 2 has not disappeared from view. The antenna got knocked askew 2 degrees off. Now, remember, if you're, 17 billion miles out, 2 degrees means you're missing the Earth entirely. But they were able to use a very powerful space telescope in Australia to ping it, and they've got the antenna reoriented, and we are now talking to Voyager 2. It's been hurtling through space since 1977. It is, 12 billion miles out, which means the signal takes 18 hours to get to it and 18 hours to get back. It's not a very fast conversation, but good news. Voyager 2 is back in communication as it heads out to the outer planets. Where is it now, John? Do you know? John?
Beyond Pluto.
Beyond Pluto. It's already beyond Pluto. Wow. That would be cool if Pluto were a planet. Sorry. Too soon?
That's too soon.
Too soon.
It hurt.
Fortnite. I didn't know. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say what kills me about these stories is that these devices from 1977 still seem to run fairly well. Every now and then they get a degree wrong. And meanwhile, my phone, like after a year or two, feels completely outdated.
I can't get a
Why doesn't anybody use special antennas for that?
Good point. Excellent point.
It's a fair point.
I did not know that Fortnite had museums. Apparently it does. It has a Martin Luther King exhibition. They are adding a Holocaust museum. I imagine that if you're playing Fortnite, you probably jump past those museums pretty quickly. But the fact that it's there, I think, is pretty cool. The museum, I guess Epic allows you to create museums. The museum has been created. It was by an expert, right? It's an expert. It better be an expert. Luc Bernard, who's the director of The Light in the Darkness, which is a game about a Jewish family in France trying to escape the Holocaust, used Epic's tools to build the Holocaust Museum, got Epic's approval. It will now be, I guess, is it in the lobby? I haven't seen it, but I guess it's in the lobby and you can go see it. Here's some.
I think that that's a wonderful way to be able to reach people, is to go into the media where they already are. Like, again, maybe people won't go, but even if you reach some that may not have been as educated about this or might be interested, or, add a storyline that goes to it, I think that we need to adapt the way that we educate people to where they already are. Like, go to where they are. Don't try to drag them into a regular museum that they may not be able to afford, or it might be more antiquated, or they might think of it as boring. So I think it's an amazing idea.
Luke says, Luke says 80% of Americans have never visited a Holocaust museum. So this is a chance to reach them.
And the other thing that I agree with Georgia entirely. The other thing that I thought was kind of interesting is, Mark Zuckerberg spent all this time trying to create the metaverse that nobody goes to. And here you have, Fortnite sort of creating a metaverse-like experience almost by accident. And people are realizing, where the people are, then you can build interesting things. So seeing like this museum pop up and all of the stuff about concerts and other things that are happening in Fortnite, it's kind of interesting to see how these things, which is certainly not what Epic planned originally for Fortnite, but what it's sort of turned into is really kind of fascinating.
This is actually, Yanko, one of the things you cover. You cover Horizon Worlds. You got an article at lowpass.cc about the new shooter in Horizon's World, Super Rumble. Is this part of a general reboot of Horizon Worlds?
It is, and part of that is that they just upped the technical abilities. So before, everything basically in Horizon World had to be built in-world, and it wasn't great looking. Everything looked sort of similar. The resolution was low, and now you can import objects and you can import things, and so that allows people to do much more professional stuff. And one of these examples for that is this new game, which actually I played it. It's a lot of fun. I think they are sort of seeing that they have to push more with first-party titles, with giving people a good reason to go there. And that goes to Mike's point with Fortnite, right? The game was there first. That's why everybody came and everybody liked the game. And then they started branching out and, maybe we can do a concert here. Maybe people can build their own stuff. And then people start building museums and all those things. Horizon tried to do this backwards in a way, I think, initially, or Meta tried to do it backwards, where they said, it's a blank slate, you can do everything. They built a couple games, but those were okay, but it wasn't the best examples, and you couldn't do that much in-world, so all the stuff that people built was worse than what Meta started with, and so it wasn't very interesting. And now they basically retooled a lot of these things, and they're going to do more first-party titles. They actually built a game studio specifically for Horizon out of Meta, out of Oculus Studios, that's going to do first-party. They're going to partner with game publishers to bring some titles to Horizon. So things are going to change quite a bit there over the next couple of months.
You refer to a leaked memo from Meta saying Meta's own staffers won't even use Horizon Worlds. The manager wrote, "If we don't love it, how can we expect our users to love it?" So it has been challenging for Meta. Do you, Georgia? Do you don't use any of these social networks in your VR play, do you?
Not really. I've tested them out and gone on, and usually they're ones that have the social aspect but also have a game that's attached to it. So I'm really there for the game, and then you meet other people that are also playing the game, and now we're all doing a boss or doing a level, so it kind of feeds itself. But the ones that are just for social, no. My just thought is why, right? I think that it's wonderful if you're lonely, or if you're you want company, or you want to do, but I think that it's a much better thing is inside of a game where you're already participating in the game. And so because of that, then you can meet other people that are like-minded with the game and talk about the game and then kind of branch out from it. I don't find it is interesting to be there. I find it much more tedious than having personal conversations with people that are in person, because you're not reading there's that uncanny valley, you're not reading someone really well. You don't get all of the same facial information. And at first it was really cute and cool to be able to do it. But after a while, I think that it just becomes kind of heavy and tedious. So it was not as fun for me to socialize online.
I think that's true in life as well. It's a lot easier, at least it is for me, a lot easier to socialize around a game. That's why people play golf. than just going to a spot and just saying, let's talk about something. It's a lot easier to have an activity, and then there could be a very vital social environment when you have a card game or something that you're doing. I used to like my poker group because it was a chance to get together with the guys and talk, but ostensibly it was to play poker. But the poker was just an excuse. It makes sense to me that would be much more intriguing.
That's basically the story why Second Life never really went anywhere. They drew like a core crowd of people who really like this creator aspect and this social aspect of it and building stuff in the world and having your own economy and all these things. But it was way too complicated, and they purposefully never wanted to be a game because they thought games are for kids.
No,
which is
they
also
were wrong. Yeah.
A bad assumption, obviously, as we know now. But so they missed the boat on a lot of those things and never grew past, I think, about 1 million concurrent users or monthly users.
You know what the game was that actually
give people a reason.
People still play Second Life, but it's mostly around sex. They found a game that they could play. It's weird. I used to be in Second Life, and I went back a few years ago, and people were buying like nude suits so they could be naked in Second Life and flirting. And so they did find an activity to commune around. Can't have been very satisfying, but it's still around. I think
it's still around. Yeah.
These are all lessons learned. I just don't know if we've learned them well enough to create a VR world that anybody wants to be a part of. We're a long way from the metaverse. I hate to say it. What do you do these days? What do you play these days? What are your games, Georgia?
So I actually haven't played a lot of games in VR right now. So
getting tired of it, aren't you? Aren't you?
It's not the tired of it. It's that they haven't made really great games. Like after Half-Life Alyx, and I did Horizon also, which I thought was good, but it was more of a climby game versus the Horizon video game that I really enjoyed. And so like Red Dead Redemption it's just a lot of fun, much more relaxing. You can kind of do whatever you want.
So that's a good example. That's a VR game, even though it's on a 2D surface, because it's immersive. Once you're in you're in that world.
Yes.
Riding horses and camping around the fire.
So Red Dead is not in VR that I know of.
No, it's a 2D game.
It's a nice 2D game, and it's just fun, relaxing, enjoyable. The pace, you can make it whatever you want. You can, just play poker all day if that's really what you want to do. And it's kind of enjoyable and chill. And so that's really good.
Hiding any whiskey under that skirt for me?
Georgia says, do not be a creep in Red Dead Redemption. This is a great video.
He has his moments. He's not usually, but sometimes.
So that's an NPC. That's not you.
That's you. That
is you.
That's you.
Are they making you say that, or you just decided to say that?
Yeah, you don't have a choice in that one. You usually do. You kind of get the good cop, bad cop. You can kind of decide which way you want to go for most things. But sometimes he's just inebriated, and he is a little bit awkward sometimes, and says things that he probably shouldn't. He owned it though. Like I was proud of him for owning it.
I think we ascribe too much importance to the nerd headset. That really, a good movie is a virtual reality experience. A good game is a virtual reality experience in the sense that you are immersed in a different world. And even if you don't have the surround picture, you have a sensory of experience of being somewhere else and being transported. I mean, that's the goal, right? And I think if you can do it without annoying people by making them seasick or putting a headset on them, you've done a better job than most VR titles.
Though I'll say a good VR titles where you're immersed in the game and you really feel it, and it's more fun than that. Like being able to look all the way around, and you really do feel like you're in that world. Like you feel a sense of sadness when you're playing something that's in VR that is exceptionally immersive. If you're into scary games, it is 1,000 times more frightening to be immersed in the world than to play it on a screen. There's many games that are scary that I can play if it's on the screen, but you put the headset on and I'm like very quickly, there's no way that I can continue on with this game. It's too much. So I still think that VR, there's a place for it. And I think that there's many things that you can do and experience and test out and train and reprogram your brain through VR that can become exceptionally effective. But unfortunately, like, I don't think that Meta did us any favors by putting out a very poorly thought out experience that really failed on many aspects.
So you think Apple's Vision Pro might prove your point?
Well, the Vision Pro is not really VR. It's going to be more AR. And I think that AR is a different animal than what I would want. Like if it was just like little tiny sunglasses and I feel like the Terminator and I get all the info about everything.
That's a different thing, though.
That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But that's not what they're offering. So if you can't make the world, if this doesn't actually make things better, the cost of having to put on a headset is going to be just too great. Even though you can still see your face beyond it, it's not really going to work. Like they're still very, very heavy on your head. Like even wearing a few pounds on your head, it's hard on your
tires.
neck. And so yeah.
I mean, I think if you go to I'm not talking about video games. If you go to a movie and it's a big screen, it's immersive. You've got music, you've got emotions. You get drawn into it. You could be just as scared by a good movie or just as emotionally wrought by a good movie as you could by a VR game. Or is there something about
have you played The Exorcist on VR?
No, it's really scary, huh? There's something you're saying it's something visceral that happens when it's immersive, that you're in it.
Well, there is. So if you look at a movie on a screen and you want to leave, like emotionally, what we do is we kind of curl up. We look somewhere else on the screen. We look at the other people. We are with others. We can support each other. Again, when every single part of our senses is in a terrifying experience and everywhere you look, it's just more terror. It is a much more visceral experience and much more terrifying. And even mild ones, such as, I think there was called Two Sisters. Anyways, it's about dolls. Dolls can be relatively creepy. Was really frightening. And it's one of these experiences where I find VR is
I have
worse.
a Quest Pro. Should I get The Exorcist?
I think it would be really fascinating to, I'd love to watch you try it out, actually, because I think that you would find it much more frightening than just
interesting. Because
the movie.
You're tricking your brain into thinking you're there, basically.
You're there. You are there. Every single sense besides feeling and smell is telling you are there.
Yeah.
And then when you add feeling to it, I think, George, you had that example earlier of the plank.
Yes.
I couldn't walk out that elevator door.
Yeah, well, so you can do that with VR at home, and you can actually put a piece of wood that you then map onto the ground.
Yeah.
And even though you set it up yourself, you put that plank on your carpet. Once you're in VR, you're gonna wobble. You're gonna wobble the hell.
Yeah. No, I didn't even have a wooden plank. I was just playing it here on the carpet. And I can't go out there. I can't go out there. I had to really force myself to. So it does trick you. It does fool you. You're right. All right, I have the Quest Pro.
Are you gonna put it? You gonna put it up somewhere? Are we gonna get to watch this?
Should I? All right.
That would be fascinating. I think that would be absolutely fascinating to see.
Technically, can I show, not with the Quest, because I could do it with the HTC. I could show the screen of what I'm seeing.
Yes.
I guess I can with the Quest if I pair it.
There is. Yeah.
I think you can pair it to a screen. To a screen, yeah. All right.
I think you can even record with an iPhone yourself, sort of in the experience.
Yeah.
Oh.
I have never done that actually.
If I scream like a girl, you promise not to laugh?
Well, we'll enjoy that. That will be, yes, we will laugh. But that's the entertaining part of it, is to watch your terror while we're not terrified. People love that, right? Like to see someone that's absolutely in sheer terror.
All right.
Did we just bully Leo into
You just bullied me into being a scaredy cat. You're talking about the Exorcist Legion, right? The Exorcist Legion VR. Yeah.
Yes.
Chapter 1, First Rights. It's on Steam. Oh. It's actually,
I would be worse, so don't even worry.
The Exorcist movie scared the crap out of me, to be honest.
Well, then.
So
this is
now I'm
another
in
level.
real trouble. How do they handle movement? Because this is one of the problems with VR is you can't like walk down a hall. How do you walk down a hall?
So for this one, I believe it's free movement, which I don't love. I love teleportation. I think it's easier, but I can do it. Is you're just using your stick and you're moving it forward and you move wherever you place your stick.
A joystick moves you forward. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's fine. That's like a video game.
And for some of them, if you have a big enough room, you can walk. And then you just turn the stick and you've flipped the
I get it.
The world around you, and you can continue to walk. But I would say you should not be walking in this because it's so scary. You may choose to run.
Yikes.
And
Yikes.
you're going to run into something and then it will feel even worse.
Should I get a barf bag though? Because it makes me a little.
Do you get motion sick?
A little bit, yeah. Will I get motion sick on this one? Is this
So you could, like, I think that the terror, I don't think that you have to worry about motion. Out of all the things that you have to be frightened of, I don't think motion sick is going to get you that far. I think
God.
you'll be ending it before motion sick.
You're really selling it here.
Yeah. Well, but so, I mean, I wouldn't ride a roller coaster because there is a finite chance that I will die on a roller coaster, but there is a 0 chance that I will die.
0 chance that you'll
in this
die
game.
on this. Fresh ginger cut up. And have that works really, really well. And have it a little bit before, and then have raw root of ginger chopped up and chew that a little bit after, and that works exceptionally well for motion sickness.
Okay, and if I do vomit, we'll edit that out.
Well, again, how many viewers do you want to watch it? That's your choice.
You're right. She bullied me into this, didn't she? You're right. You're right. I've been talked into doing.
But
it sounds fun.
She knows the Elon Musk game, which is what is it going to take to get you some attention, Leo?
Yeah, she knew how to push that button.
I need more attention.
I need the attention. All right.
How many more people you want to join club? So
I need a young priest and I need an old priest.
Quit.
And we're going to play the game. Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
It'll be a club exclusive. Yeah.
Oh,
you'll have to pay $7 if you want to see me barf. Speaking of games.
And the numbers doubled.
There is a game called Magic the Gathering. I'm thinking, Mike, you must have played Magic when you were a kid.
I have never played Magic the Gathering, but I am very familiar with it, certainly.
How about you, Janko? Do they have Magic the Gathering in the Netherlands?
I'm from Germany, but
Germany. Okay,
it's close enough. It's almost the same thing, but it wasn't part of my upbringing.
I don't know why I thought you were Dutch. German, of course. Well, there are people who did play this card game, and it's still very popular. Wizards of the Coast adapted Lord of the Rings into a Magic the Gathering set and decided to make a card, just one, with Sauron's ring. Just one. A hyper-rare card. It was found back in June. The owner has now sold it to rapper Post Malone, who is apparently a big Magic the Gathering fan. He bought the card for $2 million for basically what is a playing card.
It's a paper NFT.
Right.
Yeah, except with the nice thing, unlike an NFT, you actually have the card.
Yes.
Post Malone seems really over the moon about the whole thing. Wow. You can, by the way, you can get a non-special, unspecial version of this card and still use it and play it. It actually plays, but I guess if I had that many tattoos, I wouldn't wear a shirt either. It seems odd, I guess. But anyway, so here he is. He's opening up his Magic deck, looking for something to play. That is wild. That is really wild. Can anybody tell if any of those tattoos have anything to do with Magic the Gathering? No, I can't either. Let's take a little tiny break. When we come back, final words with a great panel. You're watching This Week in Tech. This show is also supported by our club members, our Club Twit members. If you're not a member, I invite you to consider it. First of all, no ads. Means nothing to skip. You get ad-free versions of all the shows, which also means no ad trackers, because we do have to use we filter through sites like I can't remember who we use anymore. I think AdvertiseCast does direct ad insertion, and pod sites. And we do that in a privacy-forward way. We have to. It's the only way advertisers will buy ads. They want to know if their ads are working. But you don't get any of that in Club Twit. You don't get ads, and you don't get ad tracking. You also get access to the fabulous Club Twit Discord, which is a social network par excellence, not just about the shows, but about everything in a geek's life. I mean, I love Discord. The more I use it, the more I like it. And we've got a very active Discord with lots of great people in there. It's really a lot of fun. I highly recommend that. Plus the Twit Plus feed with shows we don't put out anywhere else. Shows like Hands on Macintosh with Micah Sargent, Hands on Windows with Paul Thurrott. We have we just added Scott Wilkinson's Home Theater Geeks. This Week in Space started in the club because the club members finance it, basically. So our club is very important to us. And I have to say, I think it's very fairly priced, $7 a month. You get all that, and you get special events that we're planning all the time in our Club Twit, thanks to our community manager. I have to say, Aunt Pruitt's doing a great job. We've got a photo walk coming up at the end of the month. I'll be part of that. Stacy's book club is coming up end of the month as well. We put together a really interesting fireside chat. Aunt Pruitt interviewed Hugh Howey, the author of Wool, the novels, the sci-fi novels that are the basis of Apple TV Plus's Silo. And Hugh is friends with Daniel Suarez, one of our favorite sci-fi authors. So Aunt and I will talk to Daniel Suarez and Hugh Howey. That's coming up in September. Another event for club members only. Again, $7 a month. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit. And we thank all of our members who make these shows possible. We had a great week this week on Twit. We've even made a little movie for your enjoyment. Watch. Or not.
Do I need to move? Did I move? Should I move over?
Yeah, you keep moving. Stop.
I don't think I'm moving.
I've been framing it every time you move.
All right, frame it there. Can you frame it there? Because I should. This is like directly in the center. So if you could.
He was framed.
Previously on Twit. iOS Today.
Rosemary Orchard and I, Micah Sargent, talk about health apps and features for your iPhone, your iPad, and more.
Club Twit exclusive.
This is the currently untitled AI show, a temporary name. We had to give it a name, though, of some sort, because we've created a feed. So if you are a Club Twit member and you want to subscribe to even these trial runs that I'm doing right now, you can do so through your Club Twit membership. There is now a feed called the Untitled AI Show, so go look for it.
Windows Weekly.
Microsoft, just today, I didn't get a chance to look into this deeply, but they added spatial audio support for meetings to Microsoft Teams.
No, I can tell you
another feature that...
No, that's cool. So we're in a meeting with 6 people, and when Joe's talking, he's over here, and when you're talking, you're over there.
So imagine this. You're in a meeting, right? This is guy Bob. He doesn't talk a lot, you know? We're all talking. We're doing interaction. It's in some kind of a 3D space. Now there's a voice behind you over here. It's Bob. And he's like, hey. And he's like, what? And it's like, why do I want people around me? Like, that's weird.
Twit.
I'm not sure this is a good idea.
If you missed a moment, you missed a mile. Make sure you catch every episode of all of our shows. It's going to be a great week. Some good news, final thought, some good news for Henrietta Lack. You do know the story of Henrietta Lack Hayla? I bet you do, Georgia Dow. No? Doesn't ring a bell? There was a good book about it.
It doesn't.
No? So in the 50s, she was a black woman who, I guess, died of cervical cancer, but they harvested some cervical cells from her without asking. Turns out the cells had some remarkable properties. They reproduced very rapidly and were saved and have been sold ever since for use in scientific research. The procedure rendered her infertile, probably because she was black. Nobody told her. Years after she died, it was revealed their tissue was removed without her knowledge or consent. The HeLa cells, according to Johns Hopkins Universities, are, quote, among the most important scientific discoveries of the last century. They've been used to develop the polio vaccine, the COVID vaccine, understanding the AIDS virus, leukemia studies. Henrietta Lacks's estate sued, in particular, they sued Thermo Fisher Scientific in 2021. This is the company selling those cells, although I think the cells aren't exclusive to Thermo Fisher. And that case has been settled. We don't know for how much, but there is a settlement that was announced on what would have been her 103rd birthday. One of the family members said, "It's outrageous this company would think they have intellectual rights properties to grandma's cells." So I think this is a happy ending. Have you covered this at all, Mike?
Yeah, I don't remember if I've written about it, but I've certainly followed the story more or less.
It's an amazing book. Yeah.
Yeah. The book is fantastic. There was a podcast that was done about it as well. I forget which podcast.
The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks is the book.
Fascinating. Yeah. And I still don't fully understand like what it is about her cells that enabled this, that you know, they reproduce quickly, but it was never clear to me exactly like why or how. But it seems like so much of like modern medicine is based on her cells. And the fact is that, you know, really prior to that book coming out, there were a couple stories like a little bit earlier, but prior to that, like people didn't even know that the HeLa cells stands for her name, Henrietta Lacks.
Right. It's just HeLa. Yeah.
And most people thought it meant, you know, it was just sort of like either a made up term or referred to something else. People didn't even realize that it referred to the person who they were taken from, including her family.
Yeah. So good, I think a happy ending to what was a very sad case. The excuse that's offered is, well, at the time there was no process for asking permission, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The cells reproduced at a very high rate could be kept alive long enough to allow for more in-depth examination until HeLa cells cultured for lab studies survived for only a few days at most, which means you couldn't do as much testing. So these were the first cells to be observed that could be divided multiple times without dying. That's how they became known as immortal. It's fascinating. Good, a happy ending, I think. Jonas Salk used them when researching the polio vaccine. His vaccine was tested on the HeLa cells. So really quite a contribution to science. Worth reading the book. Came out in 2011, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. This also says it was an HBO movie. So if you don't want to read, you can look for that on HBO, the documentary on HBO. Let's see. The incandescent light bulb. Bye-bye. August 1st. They stopped selling incandescent. Did you know that? No more incandescent. Can you buy them in Canada? I might be visiting.
I think that you still can, yes. So, but we'll probably be it probably will be following suit soon. So.
Yeah. We tried to ban them back in 2014. Congress or actually maybe the Department of Energy passed a regulation saying they're energy inefficient. No more incandescent light bulbs. We have better replacements. We have fluorescents, and more importantly, we have LEDs. Under the Trump administration, he put on, you may remember, he said, no, we need our incandescent lights. So he put that off. It has now become law. And the Biden administration actually started under George W. Bush, believe it or not. But the Biden administration has now officially approved. And there will no longer be incandescent light bulbs in the store. Use LED light bulbs. There are some exceptions, weird lights like appliance lamps and plant lamps and specialty lamps. Traffic signals, apparently, use incandescent bulbs. So you can do that. I guess heat lamps, probably you can use those too, because that's the whole problem with incandescent bulbs is they generate so much heat, they're wasting electricity. I think we could probably call it a day. Did you want to talk about Rocket? Or is it Rokid, Yanko?
I think it's Rokid. Yeah, it's a fun little story. If you want to check it out on my newsletter, lowpass.cc. Basically, it's this Chinese company that makes AR glasses, and now they made a dongle that turns your AR glasses into a smart TV or brings that same experience.
Have you tried them?
I have not tried them, no. And I think the dongle won't sell until September. It's sort of smart glasses that basically just project something, or that usually use them to mirror your phone or your game console, so it doesn't really interact with the environment. But now you have this thing that you plug in, and then it's basically a smart TV. And I thought it was kind of fun and interesting, because what's really a TV these days, right? So now it's a thing that you put in your pocket.
And these look like regular spectacles. They are not cheap. They're $529. It's a lot cheaper than the Vision Pro headset. Yep. But interesting. I think somebody needs to buy these and try them, and it's not going to be me, because I'm busy throwing up playing The Exorcist. But no, I think this is kind of intriguing. Maybe we will get a pair and see how they are, because that would be great for an airplane or somewhere else. Yanko, thank you so much for being here. Yanko Reckers, again, his newsletter, brand new. Go on over and check it out, lowpass.cc. And, of course, I read him all the time in the information and elsewhere. He does a lot of freelance writing. It's great to have you on. I appreciate it.
Always happy to be here.
Thanks for visiting. Mike, now a superstar. We're just lucky we could get him one last time before his sold-out Eras tour. Mike.
Oh, gosh.
Everybody.
We need the Santa Clara Police playing my...
playing the Mike Masnick theme. I got to tell Kashmir Hero, Tech Dirt is exactly how it's supposed to be. It's exactly right. TechDirt.com. It is, if you want to keep up on this stuff. I don't understand how Mike doesn't have an ulcer, however, because 9 times out of 10, it just makes me mad. It just makes me mad, the stuff they're talking about here. But it's all the news, as they say, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. If you want to pay attention, techdirt.com. And you got a game. Tell me about the game, because I think something happened recently, right? With the game.
We released a game a few months ago called Moderator Mayhem.
Yeah.
Which is
you get to be Elon Musk.
You get to be a content moderator for a fictional social media / review site, and you get to experience what it's like to make very difficult decisions with very little time and often not enough context, and have people yell at you and have to deal with a bunch of things along those lines. And so we released that in early May. So
nice. Moderatormayhem.engine.is, is that correct?
Yes,
is this it?
That is it. Yes. So you can play it on a regular browser. It's designed for a mobile phone, but you slide cards left and right, whether take up, leave down.
Kind of like Tinder, right?
Did your boss yell at you?
Yeah.
So
we played it on This Week in Google when it came out, and I did not get very far through the deck. It is hard.
You can get fired pretty easily.
It is. I will really say hard.
I'll give you a heads up that probably, I'm not going to say when, but very soon we're going to be releasing another game, which is in a similar vein, whereas Moderator Mayhem is very much a frontline moderator. You're the person making the decisions as they come. The next game that we're very, very close on is you are running a trust and safety team for a fictional social media network, and you have to make resource allocation decisions, policy decisions, and face lots of hard problems, deal with crisis situations, have journalists yelling at you, having politicians yelling at you.
It's a little too realistic, I just want to say. As somebody who moderates a Mastodon instance, this is a hard thing to do, and these are really tough. Here's the reported for illegal tutorial. In the tutorial, a review of the film Cocaine Bear encourages viewers to do cocaine while watching it. Content includes a picture of a bag with white powder, #cocaine. Is that legal? Is this, do you approve, in other words, right? If you think it's okay, you check it. And wrong. This review clearly involved illegal activity and should have been taken down. Oh, I pushed the wrong button. Review of a drug includes a photo of a syringe. Photo of a syringe, #my favorite drug. Is that illegal? If I said yes, I'd be wrong, because the review is for a legal drug delivered by injection. So you can see how difficult this is. It's a lot of fun. You did a good job with it. And it really, the point of it is, while it's a good game, the point of it is to teach people how hard it is to be a content moderator. And
it's just because I think most people who haven't been in that role, who don't run their own Mastodon instance, for example, or don't spend $44 billion to own Twitter, they think that it's really easy. Yeah. People look at it and say, well, I would take this down.
I think Elon thought it was easy before he bought Twitter.
Yes. He should have played my game.
How hard could that be?
He should have played the game.
How do you find time to do this, Mike? I tell you. You were right when you said Elon's going to speed run the what did you call it? The moderation curve?
The content moderation learning curve.
Yeah. He has hit every point you said he would hit.
Yeah, but he hasn't learned anything. So that's the weird part.
Did you really expect him to?
I don't know. You see other, we sort of joked about it because we would see other websites, other new social media companies show up and go through this process where they would say, oh, we're the free speech thing and we're never gonna take down anything. And then suddenly they learn that that's an impossible statement to live up to. But everybody else seems to learn at least something, whereas Elon is just all over the map.
See, that depends on the personality construct he has.
Yeah.
What would the construct be of somebody unable to learn a lesson even though he's taught it again and again and again?
So when your identity is linked to people feeding your own self-worth, it does not bode well to learn because that means you've made a mistake. And if you've made a mistake, that hurts your ego. And so you can't do that. So you surround yourself just with yes people, try to do the things that gives you the fastest, easiest ego gratification. And rarely do the people in those personalities go in for actual help. So the learning curve is very, a straight line.
And it helps if you've got billions and billions of dollars, you can hire the best yes people. We see that a lot.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Surround yourself with the very best.
Exactly.
At least the costliest yes people.
Yes. What a lesson we've learned. Georgia Dow is fantastic. And I'm sincere when I say we need more psychological insight into all of this because it helps explain stuff that seems inexplicable. And you do it so well. Georgia Dow on YouTube. She's just done the Red Dead Redemption game, Therapist Reacts, but there's a ton of them and some great stuff. Castlevania. You do TV shows too and movies, and I'm looking forward to your Barbie. Are you going to do one on Barbie?
I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
I would watch that for sure. Subscribe. Do it. Go to youtube.com/Georgia Dow. And of course, if you're feeling down, email georgia@westmounttherapy.com. Is that right? Am I going too far if I say that?
They can email. I can't give therapy over online. It's not fair. There's no confidentiality, but I can tell them where to get help or what kind of help that they should get. Yeah. So I can send them in the right direction.
Right. Such a pleasure. All three of you. Thank you so much for joining us. We do Twit every Sunday with the best people, I have to say. I can't afford them, but they come voluntarily, which is nice. 2 to 5 p.m. East Pacific. That's 5 to 8 p.m. Eastern. That is 2100 UTC. You can watch us do it live if you go to live.twit.tv. If you're doing that, chat with us live. The IRC is open to all, irc.twit.tv. Or join us in the Discord if you're a Club Twit member. Club Twit is at twit.tv/clubtwit. After the fact, you can download copies of the show. It's a podcast from the website, twit.tv. You can also go to YouTube. There's a dedicated channel there. The best thing to do is search for Twit in your favorite podcast client, your podcatcher, and you will automatically download if you subscribe the minute it's available. Then you don't ever have to wonder, do I have another fresh Twit? Thanks for being here. 18 years and counting. We've been doing this show, the longest running tech news show in the world. Thank you for coming and visiting, and we'll see you next time. Another Twit is in the can. Bye-bye.
Amazing.